What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of DYAD in the Force, episode 222, the one about the heir to the Empire. But not that kind of empire. The Lucasfilm, I think.
Yeah, we got a little bit of, well, non-news, but we'll still talk about it. And yeah, I mean, it's always a good time to talk Star Wars.
Yeah,
we care about this stuff. We care about the future of the franchise.
So we're joined this week by Joshua Patton. And we're bringing him in right now. Hello.
Oh, hi, coming in, light speed skipping right into the Diet of the Force channel. Hello, everyone.
You can't. It breaks hyperspace rules.
No, I fixed the compressor. It's fine.
Oh, what about the gravimetric compensator?
Oh, damn it! I knew I forgot something.
Welcome to Diet in the Force. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone in the chat? Let them know what you do, and if you want to plug anything, go right ahead and tell us.
Oh, sure. Well, I am I was born in 1980 with The Empire Strikes Back. Ooh. My first movie memory is seeing Return of the Jedi, and I have a visceral memory of the end of that film, thinking, as the music was hitting, like I had just seen the coolest thing in the world, and it's over. So every time we get a new Star Wars, no matter what, there is that part of me that's like, I love Star Wars. I was a political reporter for like 20 years. In 2017, I switched to doing entertainment full time. I'm sure you can all guess why. And now I write for CBR.com. I cover Star Wars, Star Trek, superheroes. And I've written a book collecting all of my critical essays about Star Trek and Star Wars from the past 15 years, called Divided Allegiance, The Third Waves of Star Wars and Star Trek. You can pick it up in paperback on Amazon.
Nice.
And like Dave Filoni, I'm a Pittsburgh guy. That's why I'm wearing the black and gold in honor of our new king.
All right.
Great to have you, man.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I mean, I gotta ask you. You said that your first theater memory is Return of the Jedi, but I just gotta ask: are you more on the Star Wars side or the Star Trek side? Not that they're versus, but is there a preference?
I mean, it really depends on it really depends. Like I reviewed Andor for CBR, and that has really like that's why I've been hitting Star Wars really, really hard. Yeah. And then in July, I'm going to pick up reviewing Strange New Worlds, and I'm probably going to feel, be more into the Star Trek thing for a while. I understand both of them so well, and I think I love them equally. I'm not trying to cop out, but Star Wars, George Lucas says, George Lucas's thing with Star Wars is that every institution, every system, no matter how well intentioned, is ultimately going to fail the people it serves. But good people will always do the right thing if given the chance. Star Trek is kind of the opposite. It says that we can build the perfect system with the perfect ideals, and if there is a failure, it is because of people, like an individual person, a bad admiral or whatever. So they are really, there's a reason that they're opposed, because they are two different approaches, but you get to the same place in the middle. Like you do good things, you help people, selfless, compassionate. It blaster to the head. I'll pick Star Wars because Star Trek doesn't have lightsabers.
Hey, they have shit communicators. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. My first memory is Return of the Jedi in the movie. My second movie memory is walking into the Search for Spock movie, which opens with the end of Khan, where Spock dies, and a 4 or 5 year old me, that was news. I was like, what happened to Spock? Yeah
I think you can draw a Venn diagram with the two ideologies of both franchises kind of meeting in the middle over several things, because two things can be true at once, right? Like the institutions will ultimately fail, but it is because of the individuals that fail it that bring it down. So like if we're talking Star Wars, the Jedi as an organization had the best of intentions. It was individuals like Dooku and Anakin and Pong Grell, just not to miss anybody.
I mean, I don't want to be controversial right off the bat, but it was individuals like Mace Windu and Yoda who they clung too deeply to the Jedi Council dogma. That was sort of the whole point of Qui-Gon Jinn, was that he followed the will of the Force regardless of what the Jedi rules were. And I mean, that's really where I got that idea that like, oh, this is about systemic institutions and doing the right thing versus what the rules say. That's why losing Qui-Gon is how, that's why it was a duel of the fates. Because, if Qui-Gon had lived, Anakin probably wouldn't have fallen.
You had me in the first half, because a lot of people point to Mace Windu and kind of veer off the rails on that cliffside in terms of like, well, he didn't trust Anakin, so, you know.
I mean, and it's not that they were trying to be like, you know, they thought they were doing the right thing. It wasn't the right thing. Like, you know, we have to remember this is fiction. Like they are doing that because the story needed them to do that. You know, we all want Yoda.
More people need to realize that. Like the eternal thought that the Jedi were complacent and their hubris brought them down, and like people don't realize that that's what the prequels was written to portray, right? And then they eschew the fact that there was 1,000 years of peace under the Jedi before that, you know. So like even in the Acolyte, when people see that, you know, a couple of hotheads or even like one person that's giving in to their selfish desire for Osha is wrong, and then the other is like, let's just leave them alone, is right, but you know, the two clash, and then you have a story all of a sudden. So go ahead, Choco.
Go ahead, Choco. I just had an Acolyte thought, but you can wait.
No, I was just gonna say, you know, one of the biggest things that I feel like doesn't get, I guess, thought about enough is, I mean, the whole issue was attachment. There was a lot of people in the Jedi Order, right? Attachment isn't the relationship; it's being unable to let things go, right? So the problem is the Jedi actually had attachment issues, but it was attachment to the Order itself of what it was, right?
I've never thought of it that way, but I like that. Yes.
Yeah, and so like and it's funny because it's kind of the same issue that Luke sees in The Last Jedi when he's like, you know, he's attached to this image of himself as Luke Skywalker, the legendary, like, I saved, you know, Darth Vader, that most evil guy. Of course I can save Ben, you know? But that's not true. That's not how that works. And because he had that thought, that's why he failed. And he's like, you know what? Maybe we're the problem. Like, is this play about us?
Yes.
So kind of bowed out.
Go ahead with your Acolyte thought, and we'll.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this fandom since Return of the Jedi was the bad Star Wars movie, so I should have seen it coming. But I actually, because I got to see a couple episodes of the Acolyte ahead of time because I got a screener, and my thinking going before the show debuted, I thought it was going to be controversial among High Republic fans, because the High Republic, I don't know if you guys do the books or the comics.
Yeah.
You know, I've read a couple of them, not caught up. But the High Republic is like the Jedi at their peak. Like, they are the ideal Jedi that we've dreamed about since we first heard of them. And I thought the High Republic fans were going to be mad because the Acolyte was sort of like the beginning of that shift into where we start with the Phantom Menace. Because, you know, you don't, the Saul and his friends, they're not the ideal High Republic Jedi from, like, you know, Light of the Jedi and the comics and stuff like that. So now again, I love that. My favorite thing is seeing the Jedi conflicted and struggling and making the wrong choices. Like, that is dramatically interesting to me, because, you know, it's funny. People all think they want, you know, like Luke Skywalker at his best or the Jedi at their best, but we got that. I mean, if you played with the toys, you wrote your best version of that movie on your living room floor. You know, they are not going to deliver what you want. So that's why the conflict stuff, I think, is more interesting, because it asks us it challenges our belief of what they're supposed to be.
Thank you for saying that, because it seems so obvious. People are like, what? This ruins Anakin's sacrifice because the Sith come. And you're like, did you think they were just done? There was just no conflict gonna happen ever again? You know, like, that's what creates story. And like Ryan Johnson said, any mythology worth its salt, you know, will continue to have those conflicts, unless you want to go the Fast and the Furious route and we get Fast and Furious Star Wars, which is
Star Wars is a saga about family, so I don't know, it might be closer than we think.
Damn. But there's less nitrous, though. There's some, but less.
Well, that's what Calkite does. No, I actually just wrote 2 articles because, you know, I think about the Force all the time, and listening to people talk about Andor, because after I finished my reviews, I dove into what other people were saying because I didn't want to read it until I was done with my reviews. I wanted to keep my sort of ideas untainted by others' opinions. And then I just, saw the way people were talking about the Force, and I realized, there are two things that I think were deeply misunderstood. I wrote one article about sort of the midichlorians of it all. The midichlorians are a thing, but when Qui-Gon explained midichlorians, I think that was meant to show, that was meant to be a thing that the Jedi could not deny Anakin's power in the Force. I don't think that was meant to say that, if your M count is low, it can't increase or whatever with discipline. Because in the Return of the Jedi story conference, George Lucas said that the Force was like yoga or karate. Anyone who takes the time to develop their skill in it, they can get better at it. And the other side of it is I did an article about how Palpatine's seduction of Anakin, because we accept that when Darth Vader chose to save Luke and turn on the Emperor, he turned back to the light. Well, what that means is that from every second since he cut off Mace Windu's arm, he could have made the selfless choice and turned back to the light. You don't fall. The Jedi believe this, and it's wrong, that you fall to the dark side, you're there. No, it is an active choice. Every day you're choosing to turn to the dark. And in that moment with Ben, Luke touched his mind, and I don't know if he knew it was the Emperor, if he could tell. I know Rian Johnson didn't have that in his mind when he wrote it, but whatever that dark presence was, it scared him enough that he gave into fear for a moment, and he made a mistake. Because again, Luke Skywalker, he is not permanently on the light side all the time. Every day he has to make the choice to be Luke Skywalker. And that's why he went to Octo, because he was like, I'm not going to make that choice. I'm not going to be Luke Skywalker anymore.
Yeah. That's why my eternal question to everybody who kind of has a hard time reconciling with that Luke in The Last Jedi is, when did your life become super easy? When did life stop being hard? Because the fact that the Force doesn't exist for us doesn't mean that we're not dealing with shit every day. As I summon my remote off screen.
Still try it every time. I still.
But I do want to comment. I do want to comment on High Republic fans not being upset about the Acolyte. That's because High Republic fans read books. They have to read books, right?
They can read books.
You can't be a High Republic fan and not have read the books, because it's only in the books, right? And the comics. So we know that this narrative is. The purpose of this narrative is to show the cracks that are forming that lead to the prequels. And we also know that it's been 100 years since we've seen Vernestra, so there's going to be some strife in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And in terms of our idyllic version of the Jedi, even in those versions, we have to imagine some conflict. We often pitch on this show, I would love to just see a show that's a serialized Jedi Order show about, younglings going to classes and just, Saved by the Bell, but in the Jedi.
I'd watch that immediately.
Yeah, but in that story, you have to imagine there's got to be a catalyst. There's got to be some kind of conflict that arises. So whether that be a dark side user or a youngling or a Padawan falling to the dark side or having brushes with it, that stuff has to exist for the story to at least progress past being a, get ready with me show, But let's catch up with the chat really quickly. I want to thank Darth Angel.
Yeah, we got real deep right away. I love it. Oh, I'm so excited.
I think it was Darth Angel. We'll see. But thank you for the 698 likes on the TikTok side. Shout out to Darth Angel.
Hey,
Forsaken Samurai. Fief My Life. I'm reading it like that. Fief My Life. Thank you for liking the stream. Shout out to I'm a Spooky Kitty, who left the first comment, but now it's gone. I apologize. Who says also go Indiana. We have Melchizedek 888. Mace Windu survived. No, he didn't.
Well, you might have. You never know.
Oh, we know.
I'll say this though: the more the prequel Jedi survive, the more it makes them really like it really hurts the like. What were you doing for 20 years then?
And that's that's our big issue with like we can't like keep bringing them out because then it just brings more questions. Sure, we love the character, we want to see more of him. Listen, give me in a young Mace Windu story, right? Like give me something like that.
Well, the one thing that they could do, but I don't think they ever would, is if Mace Windu survives, you do a Mace Windu story where, you know, he's not being a badass Jedi. He's just helping people. He's like, you know, kind of like what Ahsoka was doing in the book before she fought the Inquisitors. Like, you know, hiding out, helping people. I mean, I don't think that's exactly dramatically interesting, but that is sort of maybe the way you could say, oh, they're learning the lessons of the prequels. They are no longer caught up in the politics of the galaxy. They are following the Force to make the compassionate choice. I mean, again, you could maybe do that, but the people who want Mace Windu back want him swinging that lightsaber.
That's why they want him back. Yeah, I would love to see a the path story of Quinlan Vos helping people escape, and maybe Kelleran Beck is also helping to ferry off younglings, but
Kelleran Beck is canon. How about that?
We won.
Yep.
Phineas McCormick says, "Happy Friday." Luis Alvarado says, "Yo, hello everyone." And then Spooky Kid says, "Audiobooks." Well, audiobooks requires some theater of the mind and imagination and comprehension at the same time. Whereas if you're watching a show,
audiobooks as reading.
Yeah. Whereas you're watching a show, you can stare at moving images and not comprehend a thing that's happening, and then make those complaints about the shows on your next TikTok, and me and Choco will stitch you and be like, "That's not what happened in the show. This is exactly what happened."
I didn't catch the guy's name, but I'm with him on the audiobooks because Star Wars audiobooks have music. They got sound effects. They do the Wookiee noises. I love it.
I mean, we've read half of our catalog in audiobooks.
Especially if you got, what's his name, Mark Thompson narrating. Oh, yeah. He does the voices.
Did you guys hear Vader just tweeted that Palpatine is in the Hutt files and that's why they haven't been released? Yeah, we heard. The girls are fighting people. You like to see it happen, you know? I mean, I'm certainly not on either side of that debacle, but I like to see
quote another movie. To quote another genre movie, let them fight.
Battlefront Twilight Company audiobook is dope. I still have to watch. You know what? We still have to read Lovers of Power.
Yeah, I mean, still haven't read Lovers of Power, but I appreciate that, Luis Alvarado. No one ever talks about that book, and it was a really good book. That was my first Alexander Freed Star Wars book. I think that might have been his first. But yeah, there was a lot of good nuggets in there about, like, I don't know, grizzled soldiers forced into the, like, an endless churning of conflict. Like, it was actually pretty good. PFEF rhymes with F. Okay. F my life. Haven't heard Fief before, so you win today. I mean, that's how I read it. So it's like Kofefe, you know? You gotta just go all in on that pronunciation. Lord Gibbs says, "Did you guys get the Acolyte visual guide yet?" I have not. No. I have the art of the Acolyte, no, sorry. No, I have the art of the High Republic, but not the Acolyte one. Yeah.
You have those. Did you get the newest complete locations that was updated after Andor?
No, not yet.
It's so, man, that's an underrated reference book because it has like diagrams of like the Jedi Order, the temple, and then like even with my latest video asking about Yoda's lightsaber, the only reference to multiple lightsabers was in Crimson Reign, but then the new book is like, here's Yoda's hut, you got a lightsaber there. I'm like, oh, that's where I kept it. So definitely you can get the Kindle version too, and this is for anybody that really loves to get into lore. Reference books are awesome.
It reminds me of the early days of being a kid in after the original trilogy ended. That's kind of all we got. They there was Splinter of the Mind's Eye and a couple of those, but a lot of the stuff was like Guide to Return of the Jedi, Guide to, and that's where you're like, oh, the Emperor's named Palpatine. Oh, Obi-Wan fought in a volcano.
Yeah. I remember that because like just diving for nuggets of little things and having it be like, I don't know, internet legends. That's one thing I kind of miss. You remember when you were little and it was like, well, I heard if you do this on this Nintendo game, you'll hit the screen. And you're like, but there's no internet. There's no way to prove it. You just heard that someone's friend whose dad worked at Nintendo said that this happens, You get a game, you may never ever.
And those urban legends without the internet, they spread. Like, I was in the army, and people from across the country had the same urban legends, the same rumors.
That's cool.
I gotta ask everybody on the YouTube chat, who is voting no on the poll instead of liking this stream? Speak up now. Reveal yourselves. What else happened this week, Choco?
I mean,
we just got Summer Game
Fest. The big thing, the regular, huh?
Did you watch Summer Game Fest?
Oh, I did not watch Summer Game Fest today. I did see some highlights. I was playing Elden Ring. I'm sorry.
What about? Did you watch Statapla?
It took me a while to be like, the hell? No. The state of play was interesting, and being a big Marvel fan, I'm most hype about this 4v4 fighter that is. They're gonna have. They said that they're playing around with the mechanics so that you either. I'm curious how exactly they're gonna do it with it being 4v4, but they're saying that it'll either be one person with three like, what do they call people who jump in, or you can just swap between them and change the order, so you can really have a lot of freedom with how it plays. And so I'm super excited about that.
I saw clips. It had shades of Street Fighter from back in the day.
Yeah, it has shades of Marvel vs. Capcom. Obviously, this one is made by Arxis, which does Guilty Gear. So, it's going to be very, very.
Video games aren't my beat. Has there been any news on that Mass Effect game they announced like 5 years ago?
Oh yeah, they just announced it yesterday. They announced that there's no Mass Effect game.
I was like, wait, because I didn't see Summer Game Fest, did they? I was like, but they wouldn't drop it at Summer Game Fest, would they? I feel like they would try to win the day and do it themselves.
I don't know. Honestly, there was a huge announcement that no one saw coming. Like there was no trades were reporting on it, no leaks. They just announced Resident Evil 9 Requiem. And that dropped during the Summer Game Fest, and that was the first crowd pop-off that I'd heard since the first Final Fantasy VII remake was announced all those years ago. Like, that's because, like, with the way media is today, and the way, like, with social media, like, everything gets leaked. Like, nothing's a surprise. So it was a genuine surprise. If they were to drop, like, a Mass Effect, they probably could have done it today. For sure. But Resident Evil 9 looks incredible.
And then there's also that Star Wars game with the guy we think is a Grisk from the I can't remember the name of the
Eclipse?
studio where the quest. Yes, Eclipse.
I don't know if there's any latest updates on that.
I mean, it's just funny how they like announce it and then it's just quiet, and you're right. If they were to just come out and be like, "It's ready," it would rock.
It would break. But like, if you, I have an insider. His name is Element 7. But if you, he works in the gaming industry. Some of these projects, Eclipse and the KOTOR remake, the studios themselves have just gone through endless amounts of crazy turmoil. And that might, big enough to potentially just kill the project. But
I know BioWare's gone through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the game industry in a whole is just quite literally in the shitter right now. You know, lots of studios.
Kind of like TV movies. It's weird. Since post-pandemic, post-strikes, it feels like everybody's in this weird austerity mode where, you know, we're getting. It seems like there's more hunger for stuff, but at the same time, no one's able to like make any money somehow. I don't understand it.
It's largely.
Well, do you think we're in the lull from the writer's strike? Like, you know, because that wave had to hit us at some time. Like we could be in that.
I mean, I think that again, this is just pure speculation. I mean, I have talked to some people in the business who, you know, they're either not working as much or unable to find work, but just, you know, the general vibe is that since the writer's strike, it's almost like the studios themselves are punishing the industry by not doing nearly as much content since. I mean, we'll just look at how Disney Plus with Star Wars. Like, we only have Ahsoka in production, and you know that means Lando's probably dead. Bob Iger wants everything on the movie theaters or on screens, but you know, Thunderbolts. To switch to the MCU real quick, it was the best reviewed Marvel film in years. The vibes around it from the fans and stuff were relatively great. People were, yeah, it was a good movie. And I haven't checked the numbers coming into this weekend, but when I wrote about the box office earlier this week, it was the lowest box office grosser other than the Marvels. You know, you know, there's things about like how quickly it comes to streaming. People wait. There's no dispensable income because of the way the economy is. But you know, I don't know what Disney's thinking in that like Star Wars is gonna pop off on the big screen in a way that the streaming isn't, like the way that, because you know,
I think
they make over $1 billion a month with their subscribers in Disney Plus. If you know,
I think it will pop
doing some
off.
quick math.
If we think about how the economy is right now, and if we think about all of the other movies that are out, Final Reckoning, all of these movies, they're doing similar numbers. So it's not like Thunderbolts made what 400+ million in a
So it was like 370. It was coming up on 370 last I checked.
Yeah, it's not like they made that surrounded by movies making billions, right? The landscape of theater movies right now is lower, just overall across the board.
Well, with Star Wars, I will say that the only parallel I see is like all the sequels made $1 billion, and that was a different time. But they also had Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, and you look post Endgame. Our only $1 billion Marvel movies are Spider-Man: No Way Home, that had your old Spider-Man, and Deadpool and Wolverine, that had your old, you know, that had returning generational figures. So Mandalorian Grogu, I think it might be good because that was a genuine pop culture moment. But Starfighter, I mean, look, I'm going to be there opening day.
You get Gosling girlies in there as well.
Hey, they need to. Hey, welcome to Star Wars. Please help us.
Yes.
Please make us. Please help us. 5 figures.
I do just think that overall, since the pandemic, we're in a different world, and we need to acknowledge that there has been a fundamental change. Yes, there has been $1 billion movies, but if you look at like that time when the sequels were coming out, if you look at the amount of $1 billion movies each year, it's night and day. Like now, the theater is just lucky to get one, and back then it was like it'd be like 5.
Yeah, well, I just looked this up. There's only been, I think, 62 or 63. I think maybe it's 68. I'm 63 or 68. The roundness is in my brain, the round number. But there's only been like that many $1 billion movies ever. So it is like we went on a run in the 2010s where every year the box office was breaking records. And, you know, I knew back then that this can't continue. It's going to fall off at some point. And so, you know, again, I also think that there's a problem with the fact that, you know, I can get Sinners on digital now. You know, I think that if it was Sinners was still in movie theaters, I'd probably go see it again, you know?
Not to mention, I feel like all of us collectively have massively upgraded our in-house systems because we were trapped at home, you know, and then we learned that we could live without certain things. Also, I feel like a lot of us live in a state of like existential dread that makes us not want to leave the house. I don't know if you get that. I get that. What do you guys in the chat think? Also, to Miguel, I can't pronounce your last name, which is sad because my wife is Mexican and she's trying to get me to learn Spanish. Marina Lorena.
Arena.
But thank you for joining us. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. I certainly don't. Well, that's because in my infinite unemployment from the game industry that is shackled by capitalism, I do DoorDash now, and I'm always out there, and now I go out and see movies whenever I want to. I saw Sinners, I saw Final Reckoning. What's the last one I saw that just came out? Jesus.
Ballerina? Have you seen Ballerina yet?
No, I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I'm waiting until next week to see that. I'm incredibly lucky that it's kind of my job to see TV and movies. Which, by the way, that's another thing. Like, it's my job to watch it, and I have a hard time keeping up, especially like in years past. I think that might be like just the sheer volume of stuff. You know, I grew up with 6 hours of Star Wars most of my life, and we get 6 hours every 6 months now of new Star Wars.
And that's something that can't be undersold. Is, you know, especially for us in the geek community, we had one movie every other year. Like, we'd get a Marvel movie, and then 2 years later, like a DC movie, and now it's just an endless onslaught, and there's just no way to keep up.
But yeah, just to reinforce Choco's kind of, you know, proselytization. Jesus, that's a word. Of like a different world, like Final Reckoning, Sinners, Karate Kid. They were maybe 80% full because I saw them on opening nights.
Mm-hmm.
Thunderbolts, even too. Everyone was clapping at the end of each. The people are enjoying these movies, right? It's just that not a lot of people are going to the movies. So when you look at the box office numbers, it's a different era right now, but it's no indicator of the quality of movie. I didn't expect people to clap at a Karate Kid movie, to be honest, but Jackie Chan's in it, Macho's in it.
I think it's actually the inverse. I think it's become the actual inverse, that you'll have high quality movies, but like, you know, the adults and stuff aren't wanting to go out, aren't wanting to spend money. So the things that are killing it are the stuff for kids, where they're like, you know what, we're going to get our kids out of the house to go see, you know, like, who the hell will I'm sorry, I know Minecraft is very popular, but I had no thoughts that movie would be successful. I haven't seen it. I don't know if it's actually good. Side thought, you realize that no one complained that Jack Black was Steve because they don't really bear resemblance, but I hear likeness is a big issue. I don't know. Never mind. That's a whole side thing.
The whole grift has to match a certain social proliferation.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, now, when Resident Evil 9 was dropped and it was just truly a surprise, the crowd went crazy. The likes, the comments were all for it. It's a female protagonist. Now, I don't know how they're going to try to spin it, because everyone's very receptive of this game right now. So we might see some grifters try to woke this game and create outrage over it.
Woke this way.
But we also might see them just not even try because everyone loves it so far, right? It's always that ambiguous kind of reception that they take advantage of. But
well, and don't forget the outrage grifter. Every so like 1 out of 10 things, especially if the vibe is generally good, they have to pretend like they will like it just to be like, see, I don't hate everything. Like, there is always that like one thing that
true.
They'll be okay with, and then they just don't talk about it.
That one video that's like, this thing surprised me.
Yes. The one, I mean, and because there is, I swear to God, like I said, I didn't read any Andor reviews till I was done with my reviews. But I was reading one where they were praising Andor, and criticizing the Acolyte as the Acolyte was too I forget how they said, but it was basically saying the Acolyte was too political. And I wanted to throw my computer across the room because I'm like, you don't get more political than Andor, and that is proof that the grift is, as you said, focused on a specific social demographic kind of thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, they don't even try to hide it, and that's another thing that I think could be an indication is there's so much fake outrage that has been weaponized against people and groups that has now escalated to the highest level.
I smell profit.
Our
Obi.Sean_Kenobi super chatted 2 credits. Beck, Filoni sounds like a Star Wars name.
Beck Filoni.
That actually does. Yeah, I would reverse it though. I could see a Filoni Beck, but
in my Star Wars naming convention, you have to take at least one letter and swap it. So it would be Feck Baloney, which is a video idea that I need to post right after this. Is what is everyone's Star Wars name? Mine, if I were to use my methodology, would be Patipo, and it sounds very Star Wars. So, what is your Star Wars name?
I just knock off the last couple letters. I'm Joshu Pato.
Pedo or
yeah, because you gotta end with.
It sounds like PDF.
Wait,
I'll have to think about it. Like my first thought wasn't swapping letters. It was like my first name backwards, which is Nodnarb.
Ooh.
If you were to use my methodology.
Oh, the backwards one might like not tap. I don't know about that.
Backwards.
It's such a rare, Star Wars words are so deliberate because, I was actually the reason I muted a minute was my kid called. Everything's fine. But I always talk to my kid about how words like Jedi, you hear that word, it is completely made up, but it sounds like it has been in the language forever. It is exactly that's what that's called.
It's not completely made up.
Oh, really?
It's based off.
I didn't know this.
So George Lucas famously takes his inspiration from Kurosawa.
Sure.
The word Jedi is inspired by Jedi, which is period films in Japanese.
I didn't know that. That's 40 years in, and I'm learning new Star Wars facts. This rules.
Yeah.
I believe I'd be Moran Bicky.
Ooh.
Nice.
I'm gonna go Moran Bicky.
See, my methodology is working out great because Miguel says Feck Baloney. Obi-Wan Kenobi says Fayin Sleck. That's an awesome Star Wars name.
Yeah.
But I would be what? Pashawa Jatin that way? That's actually not bad.
Oh my gosh, that sounded awesome. Wait, what was it?
Yeah, as soon as I said that, I was like,
Jatin?
oh, he sounds like a smuggler you cannot trust.
That's an awesome name.
That's way better than Joshu Pato.
Yeah.
So, what was your Choco?
Well, I just realized because the thing is, I've never said my last name on anything, but it was because I was in the financial industry and I didn't want that getting around. So I'm not giving my full one.
I would swap
I went with Moran Bicky, which is part of my last name.
Morand. I would actually, because I'm trying to sound this out. I would actually swap in the D, and it would be.
Yeah, you would.
It would be no, it's kind of like.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
It's kind of like Draven, right? Drandon.
Okay, no, we can slip the D back in there.
Lube it up and slip it in. Lewis is Odoravla Seul. That sounds like a Dagoyan master, dude. F My Life says hashtag learn something new. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff comes from a lot of what George Lucas wrote came from Eastern philosophy and Eastern cinema. To be, I mean, it's about the Vietnam War. It's even Eastern politics. But F My Life
it's actually kind of funny because George Lucas did kind of like, some people will be like, you know what, I'm gonna want to make something up. I don't want it to be super influenced by this stuff. But George Lucas just straight up was like, okay, it's gonna be a Kurosawa film, but I have to do more research so I don't get sued. And his research for the film was just reading books and getting comics and just reading them and just like grabbing bits and pieces of this and that, and, you know. Some of those books I actually need to read.
Did you guys read because they did a comic based on his original first draft when it was like really weird,
the Star Wars,
yeah, the Star Wars. And I wonder where in the progression of like writing that script and we getting A New Hope that he like saw Hidden Fortress and was like, oh, this is the formula. Oh, I'm gonna fit this. You know what I mean? Which, you know, I don't fault him for it. Like,
yeah,
it's funny because, you know, that is how. You know, I write fiction. I dabble in fiction myself. I studied fiction writing in college, and you know, that is how everything is done. You pull from the stuff you consume, and like sometimes it feels like real. You know, sometimes it can be real derivative. I mean, you look at the Orville on I think it was Fox and then Hulu.
Yeah.
Like it's basically Star Trek, but it works. You know, it is derivative, but it isn't bad. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but Star Wars is like, he was really good at like taking all these different things and then putting them in a stew and coming up with this thing that felt unique until you like dive in, and then you're like, oh, there's Hidden Fortress, oh, there's this, and then, you know, here I am, 45 years old, Element telling me Jedi is a real word, which makes sense because it sounds like a real word.
Well, you know what, I think where George Lucas really succeeded is, yes, he took inspiration from a lot of, you know, stuff, right? John Carter, the Lensman series, Fourth World stuff, just
Dune, famously.
Yeah, just stuff from all over the place. But what he succeeded is he didn't grab a little piece of this, a little piece of that, a little piece of that. I think he tried to recreate, how did I feel when I was reading this stuff for the first time? How do I put that onto the film? You know what I mean? Like him watching pirate serials or cowboy serials. You know, how did this feel when I was a kid watching these swashbuckling adventures? How can I make kids today feel that? And I think that's where he succeeded.
Yeah. The Deckwise on TikTok says, "Hey guys, love the content. Appreciate you rocking with us, Deckwise." F My Life had a question earlier that says, where did you peeps get started in your lore study? Mine is quick. I mean, after Empire Strikes Back, I started getting into the encyclopedias and the atlases that they would release for Star Wars. And then my first big one was the Journal of Nostaral when I was playing Sator.
I mean, for me, when it comes to lore, I read Expanding Universe books when I was young. There was actually, well, never. I'm not even going to say that. But, I kind of, you know, but I didn't do anything. I wasn't openly a nerd. I was still in the locker, so to speak. And so it wasn't until much later that, you know, I had a job where I was working outdoors, and I got into the Star Wars audiobooks, which was re-listening to some of the books I've already read and then keeping up on new stuff. And this was around the time Force Awakens was coming out and all the stuff. And that got me back into it. I started listening to these like Star Wars podcasts, and you know, some of them are big names that we know, and I realized they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Everything he's saying is wrong. Like, okay, like he clearly is doesn't actually know the lore. That's interesting. And so I had to like seek out to find people that actually knew what they were talking about. Then eventually the sequels come out, and I hear a lot of really bad faith commentary. And the source of it all was having bad information years ago that built into the zeitgeist. And if you have a bad foundation, the whole thing goes to crap. And so, yeah, one day it was Star Wars Day, and I posted my first video on TikTok, and I got like 700,000 views, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be easy." And I turned out I was incorrect, but that's where we started.
Yeah, just to add to that, I when I started talking about lore and correcting the misinformation, the sequel misinformation, I started seeing this person, Darth Choco, also correcting things in my comments. I'm like, who is this guy? Because he's getting shit right off of the bat, And then, of course, we fast forward to today, and, the DYAD in the Force community is always riding up in style as the cavalry. And they correct people on a daily basis, and not in the whole actually like method. It's actually correcting like incorrect stuff. It's not like Charles Bennett saying Anakin blew up the Death Star, and you're like, oh, actually it was Luke. No, like these people are making things up in Star Wars, and they're unable to distinguish fanon from canon and legends from canon. And the biggest culprit is it being the Grey Jedi that we're constantly talking about. Not a lot of people. I mean, listen, it says Grey Jedi in the Jedi Path. It says it in one comic. The Grey Jedi robes in KOTOR. It just says, those who go against the council. But it's never been about using both the light and the dark, and that's the definition that pervades today. That's the misinformation.
And even in canon Star Wars today, A, you'll never hear that term used ever, but B, the Jedi Council isn't actually that strict. I don't know if you watch or read a lot. Like they'll say, "Hey, don't do this," and then you're like, "I did that," and they're like, "Oh,
Nice.
You know what I mean?" And so they invited Qui-Gon to join the council because he disagreed with them. One of the new books, Living Force, I really love that book because Qui-Gon calls him out. This is after he decided not to join, but they still listen to him. He's like, hey, you guys are not spending enough time with the actual people that you're supposed to be protecting. And they were like, hey, he's out of line, but he's right. And so they went and they did just that. And that's what the book is about. So like
Spoiler
it's
alert, Ki-Adi-Mundi orders some ice.
Yeah, that book also helped change my feelings on Ki-Adi-Mundi because it turns out he's just very autistic.
He is, but he's still very wrong in everything he says. Like I don't know why people. I think I know why people use Ki-Adi-Mundi. It's this reaffirms my narrative, so I'm gonna use it. But like, come on, guys. Everything that he says is wrong. When he says the Sith have been extinct for a millennia, Qui-Gon literally just got back from fighting a Sith. When he says he's a political idealist, not a murderer, Dooku is murdering people right there. It's just,
But come on, he was the only one to ask about the droid attack on the Wookiees.
Right.
He did. To answer the lore question, I have a different approach because again, I came up during the original trilogy era when some of the books they put out, they were just wild. They were they were just making stuff up. So and the early legends, I'm sure if you guys dove into those were very inconsistent. There are like 4 different origins for Boba Fett. So I've never been
he was Vader's
strict.
brother once. That was weird.
He was. There was a Marvel comic where they introduced Jabba the Hutt, and he was like a green guy, I think. Like he looked real weird, or he was like a cat person. I don't know. But that's why I've never been like super precious about, you know, the lore in relation to like your fan experience. Like if you love the idea that you know, some Legends concept or whatever, like that's great. I'm not here to police your Star Wars fandom. But if you're arguing, you know, that like the Acolyte is both dishonoring George Lucas's central philosophy and misandrist based upon some like bad reading of Legends, then yeah, you kind of need to be called out. Like that's kind of why like it's good, you know, I don't do the video thing, I do the writing thing. So I can sort of, you know, I get to just frame the discussion the way I want. And I don't even, you know, the certain YouTuber that we know that talks about the lore and gets it wrong, I never mention his name. I never have to. Yeah, I know. I kind of watch him in business all the time.
We have several names from Chet's our favorite, but
yeah, no, and that's exactly that's exactly what we try to do. It's not about, you know, policing your fandom, and it's not about like I love the expanded universe. You know, I love canon Star Wars, and I just know which is which. So if I'm answering a question, you know, this is over here, that's over there, you know?
Yeah, I'm rare for my generation. I love that Disney was like, all right, reset. I was like, okay, now I can finally keep up. Like I can read the books, read the comics, and keep up and know.
It was so
and I will admit,
needed.
I have my quibbles. Like Grey Jedi, I don't like that. You know, I'm glad Duel of the Fates didn't get made, because that's kind of where that ended. And
yeah,
you know, I don't like the idea that, you know, that it's become this thing where it's like, it's good to be a little selfish and evil and self-serving.
And to the
you
people,
know,
which actually goes directly against George Lucas's message.
Yeah, in fairness though, Lucas was like, he called it balance, but he means the one side and only the one side. Like he did set some people up for failure.
My favorite era is Legends, and that's the Old Republic era. You can see Satele Shan, Darth Malgus, Ashla and Bogan Moons. I mean, it doesn't get as any more, I guess, serious than that. But you know, I'm still a sequel shill, even though like my most favorite stuff is far from the sequels, except for The Last Jedi. But you know, I digress.
And I'm all about my big lizard lady, Saba Sabatine. You know, she's wifey.
Let's see here. Let's go back to the chat. Them referring to Boba Fett as Daimyo is also another one from
yeah.
Hey lads, don't be mad at me. I'm currently watching the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise for the first time at the moment. Well, we're mad at you. Miguel says, hey guys, how canon do you think the books and comics are, since they sometimes retcon them? I treat them as soft canon in my head, like they're canon until movies or series say otherwise. So that's essentially a good approach to it.
Really are a dyad. You both hit the so at the exact same time, the exact same.
I like to see. Well, I'll just make it quick. I like to see it as the same way the Reader's Companion treats Legends. You know, it can reliably be said to have occurred until it's depicted otherwise. And so the books and the comics, they are canon. You know, Disney says they are canon, but if they do get depicted on screen and they directly contradict, then the on-screen depiction takes precedent.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I'm in a very similar boat. Basically, the way it works now is how everyone thought the expanded universe worked, which is not how it worked.
How long till they bring back the tiers? G tier, S tier.
Yeah, well, and so that's what I mean is nowadays everything is canon, but it is tiered by visual media. You know what I mean? If you read the Force Awakens novelization, you know, Rey meets Poe at the end of that. It's because they're being written at the same time and they got cut out of the film. You know, so officially they didn't meet there. So, you know, the film takes precedent. But in the old in the expanded universe days, and according to the Reader's Companion, released before Disney bought Lucasfilm, it says that it doesn't enter George Lucas's canon unless it's depicted cinematically in his project. But you can, reliably say that it's in continuity unless it's conflicted with a canon source. So they never considered it canon, but they said it was in continuity. And if there wasn't going to be an issue, then they would toss it in. But they really, really needed to start over. I mean, did you know that there was a weird bug with mouths on its chest, and if you got its chest, mouth, saliva in you, it made you younger? That's a thing that happened in the expanded universe.
Yeah, there were force vampires.
The way Boba Fett got out of the Sarlacc pit is the Sarlacc pit literally burped, and it launched him up in the air, and then he landed on the sand, got a concussion. Jawas found him, and they thought he was a robot. And then they also took R2-D2. Our hero showed up to get R2-D2, but he couldn't remember who they were, so he helped them. And then he remembered at the very last moment, and the runaway sandcrawler crashed, and he flew off of it and landed back in the Sarlacc pit.
I think the confusion with how the EU worked back then comes from that tier list, which gave it its own canon name, and they think that meant it was canon. But back then, what was canon was whatever George decided. Every EU book and comic that fell under S canon was separate canon.
Yeah.
That was in continuity with what George had, based on what George had depicted. But to put that into context, the story that I wrote post Rise of Skywalker, which is fan fiction, was also in continuity until Ahsoka came out. And totally rewrote my how I wrote Ahsoka. But like that can be in continuity. You can have a fan fiction writing style that is in continuity for as long as that isn't touched by the official source. But that's what it was. It was a different canon. It was Legends canon, EU canon, in continuity with G canon. And Disney took G canon and said, this is the canon, and it will build off of it. But
well, the one thing I think that sort of vanished, especially as the expanded universe grew from like my generation, was that we would take disparate things that didn't work and we would try to imagine how they worked. We would try to like make them fit.
Like
it wasn't this thing where like, oh, they got Star Wars wrong. It was like, you're like, well, okay, how could Boba Fett be, here and in this place? Like, and again, it works, it doesn't work, but that was sort of like the fun of it, was trying to like marry the two ideas together. So, instead of complaining about like, say, the way Andor retconned the K2SO comic, or the way that Tales of the Jedi sort of condensed the Ahsoka novel, you'd find ways to marry it up and justify. I mean, heck, I do that in my articles sometimes. I'll justify the hell out of some stuff if I get a good idea to make it fit. I made Andor and Rebels fit really nicely by saying like, oh, it's the news cycle in the HoloNet. Mon Mothma's just making speech after speech after speech.
We're gonna actually you with the Ahsoka one though.
Okay, please do.
Because I mean, for all intents and purposes, that is not Raida. That is not the Inquisitor that she fights. So, continuity wise, it could be reconciled with the fact that that's a different fight. Looks the same.
Ooh, okay.
Same contextual circumstance, but it's not. It doesn't look like it because she fights the sixth brother in Raida City proper.
That's right.
And it looks like she's just out in the field.
And
somewhere.
she detonates his crystals. And that's what kills him.
So it could
actually in the Tales of the Jedi thing. Did she? Because I really did only watch that one once. Did she even have a lightsaber, or did she like take his?
She didn't use one at all. She took his.
And
slashed
well, she can have
down with
lightsabers because she heals the crystals in the book, right?
Well, she gets it from the sixth brother after defeating him.
Okay. So yeah, you're right. That is the exact thing we could do. You can Frankenstein those two stories together, make them all fit in canon.
But what? Yeah, and I hear what you're saying with people today, where they hear something that doesn't immediately fit, which is weird because like a lot of these people will not read anything canon, so they don't even they don't care about the story, and because they don't know how this works, they assume it's broken and it doesn't work. I actually had someone in the comments. They mentioned Pablo Hidalgo, and they're like, well, you know, Pablo Hidalgo said that the Holdo maneuver works, and so he's wrong too. And you're like, no, you're wrong.
He's
like,
the keeper.
Okay, listen. The people who can make the lore can't be wrong about it, first of all, fundamentally. Right? But yeah, he figured out how it works and then implemented it. Just because it's weird.
The people that complain the most about canon breaking are the people that don't care about canon.
Yeah.
That don't know canon. Like, the sequels aren't canon.
Which is why we love the High Republic readers, is because if you are actively reading and consuming new stuff, then that means that you have a mind that accepts new information.
I smell
update
profit.
your lexicon.
The Orbital Clunkers super chatted 5 credits. When you all have kids, how will you introduce them to Star Wars for the first time? My idea is to make them play the Lego Skywalker Saga game.
Ooh, that's a great idea. Thank you so much
bad,
for the $5 ramen drop. Absolutely appreciate it. I know what my answer is.
Mine is history. It's just what I did because I have a kid. So I put on the TV, and the Phantom Menace was on, and I forget how old my kid was, but probably the kid 6. Was just a little too old to start with that one, you know. I wasn't thinking about it at the time. I wasn't like, oh, this is the introduction to Star Wars. I was just like, oh, Phantom Menace, let's watch it, and became like anti-Star Wars. Now this was also part of the age where everything an adult liked was whack and lame, and you know. Eventually found its way back, which is one of the reasons that I will forever love the sequels. Is that for seeing Rey and Finn, my son's biracial, you know, so there was like, there was, I don't know if there was a representational quality there or not, or if it just was cool and new, but what all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm curious about this Star Wars thing. And then we watched the original trilogy, then we watched the prequels. The kid will trash the prequels, but also knows like who Ben Quadraneros is. So, you know, we'll have like arguments on Reddit about Star Wars, and I feel pride. So I will say this. Awesome. I will say that like, even if you mess up the introduction, Star Wars will find its way back into their lives.
My plan
but don't start with the prequels unless they're real young.
my plan is to is 2 things. One, they're growing up with Young Jedi Adventures, because that show is beautifully done.
If only that existed.
Yeah, and then the next thing is we're going to Galaxy's Edge, so their earliest like memory is going to be being on the Falcon. Like they're going to remember being in Star Wars and then watching.
You got
Star
money.
Wars.
Oh, you got money.
I wish.
Nope.
I used to.
I mean, that is a regret. I wish I could have gone to Disney World, but it is expensive.
My first introduction.
I've been fortunate enough that my last 4 or 5 visits, I haven't had to pay for.
Oh, that's the way to do that. Talk to me offline. Give me that.
Wait,
hustle.
didn't we pay for DYAD tickets?
Oh yeah, sorry, we did pay for DYAD tickets.
It was discounted, but still.
But other than that, you know, we got invited to D23 and got brought out for Jedi Survivor, brought out for like just other stuff.
That's how I'm going to introduce my kid. I'm going to wait for Lucasfilm to invite us to something. I'm just kidding. It'll be all on their tab. No, I'm going to wait until...
Daddy's friend, Luke Skywalker.
I'm going to drop him off at Mark Hamill's house.
I'm going to wait until they're like 6 or 7. And I'm going to find a moment when they're just like watching something. The lights are out. I'm going to show up with a robe. and I'm gonna ignite a blue lightsaber, and then have the Anakin's dark deeds start playing. And he's just gonna automatically be like, "What's going on? What do we do?" And I go,
You're like, I'm also gonna have. You're also gonna make him have a British accent for some reason.
yes, exactly. I'm gonna teach him all of it. Nah, I mean, eventually, I mean, yes, the idealistic route is Young Jedi Adventures. It's gonna be easy to get them to love lasers and blasters and lightsabers and moving things with your mind. That stuff is really easy because kids are very imaginative. That's why Lucas said this stuff was for kids. Still is for kids.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say though, what you said though also kind of makes me want to like wait until they're like 5 or 6, and then like in the bedroom start playing like a klaxon sound, and so they come check it out in a dark hallway, and you hit them with the hallway scene. That might be a good way.
These guys got
Full
invited
Darth Maul
to the
paint.
Morbius premiere.
Yeah.
Jesus, stop bringing back our. I mean, I enjoyed seeing Adria.
It was
there,
fun.
but that movie.
Listen, this is not a good movie, but it's an adventure.
I was 10 feet. I was 5 feet from Bix, so I'm
Oh.
happy.
I almost walked into Tyrese.
If you walked into Tyrese, what would be the first thing you said?
Put your blouse back on.
Damn, you are one syllable away from saying you better hide that big ass forehead.
Tyrese was supposed to have a robot arm in that movie.
Was
And
it?
they just erased it.
Let's see here. Oh, happy birthday, Connor! Happy late birthday. I think.
Oh yeah.
Happy birthday.
Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, June 5. Damn, we're in June gloom already. Time flies. How's it going, Kenny Heron? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Diet in the Force.
For any of you who don't know, in Southern California, when June hits, it gets really cold and overcast and starts to rain. So we call it the June gloom. We're hitting it right now.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh hasn't seen the sun for like 4 weeks. It's been rainy, cold. Past couple days were like kind of warm, but other than that, actually it was storming when we started. So
Yeah.
Let's see. Jedi Smart says Mia Goth gonna be in Star Wars and Resident Evil 9. Announced big day for annoying horror fans like me.
Yes. Who's she gonna be in Star Wars?
is she in Starfighter? Or
I don't know.
Mando?
I don't know, but it's welcome.
Connor says, you guys see the sun sometimes.
Mhm.
It's a rare
Connor's
sight
over
here in California.
across the pond.
But also, just to kind of follow up with last week's milestone of 20k likes, I had an idea that I floated to Choco, and I haven't gotten an answer yet, but I was wondering if you guys would like to see us do the Hot Ones challenge. Now that's a kit that we can buy, and we can film a video in person and do directly. But let us know in the chat if you guys want to see that happen.
Do you guys like spicy stuff?
I love spicy stuff.
I mean, as an Asian, I eat a lot of spicy stuff, but I don't have experience with.
I'm gonna vote yes. Then I think you guys could take it.
I mean, in our last spicy noodle challenge, it was hot, but it didn't really kill us. But at the same time, I've never tried Da Bomb, and I've never tried The Last Dab.
I will say that one chip challenge was
a
pretty
chemical
rough.
burn, though. Every time I
Yeah,
see someone do it, it's not like this is a spicy chip. Like, no, there's like acid on their tongue. This is literally hot.
I may be reinforcing white guy stereotypes, but like Frank Red Hot, that's enough for me. Like I'm like, oh, that's right where I like to be.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I could bite it.
It also keeps you a
habanero
lot safer the
peppers.
next day because
In the army, we would we would get these meals ready, like these meals in a bag, and they would come with like little bottles of Tabasco, and that would help make like inedible stuff kind of more edible. But it was just, I think the spice killed the bad taste.
Yeah.
So Malik says she's been casted in Starfighter apparently as the villain. Interesting. Okay. Connor says, "Holy yes! After every wing, answer a harder lore question. Who do we get to write our questions? We can outsource it to the community just fine. Everybody.
Yeah. Connor says, "What's y'all's thoughts on wasabi? Spicy or nah?" I will say wasabi is so
like
over
a
here we
sinus clearer.
typically don't get true wasabi, but honestly, wasabi is one of my favorite things to put on a sandwich. Just lather
if you
one side. It's
if
delicious.
you can get the actual root like done in front of you, the thing is, wasabi to me isn't spicy.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, it's
Like it's got like that horseradish
yeah,
kind of.
horseradish.
It's like
type
there's
of-
clears the sinuses, but
it's a kick for sure,
not-
but it's not a spice or anything.
I like wasabi peas.
I like
Yeah,
this.
those are good.
I suppose like I can bite into habaneros like just fine. I think that's like my normal spice level. But again, like some of the hot sauces that's on the Hot Ones challenge is reaching into the 100,000 Scovilles, and that's not something that I typically keep track of. I don't know where habaneros are. I like ghost pepper sauce as well, but
Constantly no, this is habanero, but yeah, my upper limit of it is after watching the show The Brother's Son, which should not have been canceled, I started getting the 2x spicy ramen noodles and just crushing them in the bag and then pouring the 2x spice in it and just mixing it up and eating those dry. And I did it so much that my wife actually bought me just a jar of the 2x spicy sauce so I could put it on anything.
I like, you know what, Korean food also is got a lot of spice, gochujang sauce, kimchi, like just that stuff in general. I enjoy spicy with the acidic.
Also, as a kid, my dad would we get like Chinese food, they'll have like those dried peppers, and I'm a little kid, I'm like 8, and my dad'd be like, "I'll give you $20 to chew on that." Which, thinking back, that might be child abuse. I don't know, but but listen, I was trying to get that money though, so.
It would bring me great joy to watch y'all both eat the bomb and beyond insanity wings. Okay, I guess that'll be our challenge.
A couple years ago, I met up with my dad and his his new family. Feels weird saying it like that, but it turns out he's still doing it. So like one of the kids, he's like, "I'll give you $20 to go jump in that pond."
$20 doesn't go as far as it used to, though. There should be some inflation there.
Agreed.
Mason B Artistry asks, "Are any of you Darth Jar Jar believers?"
There's something there. There's something there. I don't think it's Darth Jar Jar, but you rewatch those scenes in the Phantom Menace, and Jar Jar Binks mouths what Padme is saying.
I smell profit.
Connor super chatted 6.77 credits. Titty and Sugi Mensha Studfitted Jennifer's body wuj sugar swujeg dot ed docs shikram petwujox rockys sos flop Star Wars.
I heard titty jiggy dementia in there somewhere.
Connor, thank you so much for the ramen drop. We absolutely appreciate it. I completely forgot what I was saying.
We were talking about,
talking about
Darth Jar Jar from Mason B Artistry.
So there's scenes where Padme is saying something and Jar Jar Binks is mouthing what she is saying while she's saying it. That's a CG character. You know what I mean? Like someone animated his mouth moving. So like That
That's true.
that's weird. That's weird. So there's something that happened. I don't believe it's Darth Jar Jar.
For me,
But whatever.
Jar Jar. I mean, so the living force touches everyone, all living things, and as we saw in Andor, some people, are shaped by what they leave behind, and others collect as they go. Jar Jar is another creature that is influenced by the Force, and I think everything that happens with Jar Jar is kismet. I don't think there is a Darth Jar Jar in there. I just think that when he stumbles and shoots like a platoon of battle droids, like, that's kismet. It's not really him just being, oh, this is his clumsy foo martial art. You know what I mean?
Jar Jar is George Lucas saying, "Hey, don't take this too seriously, please."
I understand why people want to make Jar Jar more complex, more interesting. And I'll be honest, there was a time where this appealed to me, not so much as it being right, but just as I Jar Jar was my least favorite part of the prequels. But then I talked to kids who grew up that love Jar Jar, like I love R2 and 3PO, and I saw him in a different light. And while it doesn't quite work for me still on like that fan level, I don't think George Lucas would have tried to make Jar Jar turn around and be evil. I don't think he was going to do that to kids, especially knowing how Anakin falling was going to break their hearts.
He got a psychologist to be like, are kids going to be okay that when they find out that Vader's Luke's father? So that also makes a whole lot of sense.
I think Ahmed Best likes the Darth Jar Jar idea. I think he was down for that.
He's a martial artist at heart. He wants every opportunity to be able to fight. That's what he wants to do.
Shout out to our favorite Star Wars Tia. I accept that you guys are probably right, but I gotta believe in my heart. Thanks. Well, you believe your heart, Mr. or whoever Mason B Artistry is.
I do have to ask you a question, Joshua. This is something that I experienced.
Racism?
No,
I don't think it's a problem. It's never happened to me.
Revenge of the Sith just came back into theaters. Did you see it?
I did. It was the first time I got to see it in theaters because when it came out, I was in Iraq and we watched the work print bootleg over there.
Oh.
And talk about, is this play about us? We were watching it in
I was
Iraq.
like, that's timely. That's like watching Andor today. Did seeing it now alter your opinion on it? Did it move it up your list, down your list?
No,
same. It's just as you remembered.
Well, seeing it in the theater was, of course, like, it's better in the theater. Like there are, like, again, details, things I didn't know. Saw the Millennium Falcon, like, oh, there it is. Yeah. Stuff like that. But no, again, seeing it in Iraq was probably like it crystallized what the prequels were to me in a way I think it wouldn't have if it hadn't been that way. And especially with my background in like political reporting and stuff, and understanding the politics of the prequels, like with each prequel film I liked the whole trilogy better. I saw the Phantom Menace and I was like, I don't know how I feel. But I love Qui-Gon, I loved Darth Maul in the fight. Jar Jar was a little much, and the politics never bothered me. I love the politics part. Attack of the Clones, thought that was great. Loved the little like caper, the investigation. Finally found out what the Clone Wars were after 25 years. We've been waiting.
Yeah.
Seeing Revenge of the Sith back then to now, I appreciate it more, I guess, because they're finally getting their due. Like the prequel kids have grown up and are able to sort of temper the criticism. Like my generation did not comport themselves well when the prequels came out.
Yeah, they did not behave.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm a little disappointed at prequel kids who are doing the same thing to the sequel kids. Like, You know, like y'all know how this is, how that feels to have people shitting all over your Star Wars. But yeah, I mean, I've never seen Star Wars I didn't like, so.
I still maintain it was worse back then because they had to learn HTML. They were so mad that they're like, listen, I need to learn how to create websites so that I can be mad with other people. Like that's Omega.
There wasn't
level,
of your dedication
like,
to your hater.
Yeah.
The V bulletin
Yeah.
PHP script proliferated because people were learning how to install that just to mouth off.
It was hate and MySpace that taught people. Okay.
And
Another
Clone
question
Wars,
though.
Clone Wars really helped. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I think it did a lot of heavy lifting. But as a soldier and a political reporter, are there any like nuggets that you notice in Andor that don't really get talked about
Oh, well, I mean, how about the fact that, you know, the first 3 episodes, like, it wasn't even allegory. It's what, you know, manipulation of the media, hassling immigrants, wear your papers, dehumanization of, you know, a population. It's a year ago that he ever thought that it would be so prescient. And you know, Mon Mothma's speech about the death of truth, that resonated. Like, the one thing I think, though, I don't think there's not a lot that's like been missed, because the one good thing about Andor being like the only Star Wars that is aimed at adults is that it gets to be explicit about its political messaging. Like, you know, Andor is a very smart show, but I think because it is so straightforward and it's not subtext like the prequels or the Clone Wars, the people who watch it feel a little smarter. They're like, oh, I get this. And the thing that's been switched to subtext is the sort of the Force philosophy of it. You get moral ambiguity. I mean, hell, you want a great Jedi, you don't get a better one than Luthen Rael, because he's doing a heroic thing, the selfless thing, but not doing them in ways like, you know, killing Lonnie was not the spoilers, by the way, sorry guys, is not the right thing to do. But it was done for what he believed is the right reasons. Like, yeah, I don't see anything that like Andor isn't like people are getting what Andor is about. Yeah, so I don't think there's anything that really went under the radar that is super resonant, but it is just, it's so prescient that, like, more than I even expected. And also, I will say that as someone who has always like defended the prequels and its politics and always liked the Star Wars politics, Andor felt like a personal gift from Lucasfilm to me. It's like, thanks for all your help, bud. This is for you. And I'm just really glad people are seeming to enjoy it in season 2. You know, the numbers were maybe not earth-shattering, but I think people will pick it up. And like, that's the thing about streaming. It's not the old school ratings. You're not going to watch it because it's on. Like, you'll pick it up when you get there.
Yeah. And people forget that even in film, since film's inception, that has always happened. There's so many projects that went under the radar when it came out and didn't pick up steam until much later. You know what I mean? Like,
every Blade Runner flopped.
Yeah. Shawshank Redemption, flop, you know? Fantastic movie, one of the best. Also, what's funny is the people who made movies like Grandma's Boy flopped in the theater, went gangbusters on VHS. You know, this stuff happens, and it's a weird.
That's how cult classics
just weird
happen.
metric.
Yeah, I was peeking at the chat earlier, and someone said something. I forget what we were talking about. Maybe it was Thunderbolts. They were talking about buying the Blu-ray. And I just want to give a shout out to buy physical media, please. We need to own our movies. Yeah. I would love to own Andor on Blu-ray because, you know, if the day comes that Disney's like, yoink, I would like to have it to watch.
Or maybe not even Disney. Maybe, you know, its messaging doesn't line up with things, you know? I think people noticed that there was a small little message at the beginning of Robin Hood that was removed on Amazon.
Oh, really?
Which is weird. Yeah. It's still in the director's edition, but in the regular edition, it was like a little preamble that was like, I think it's like it's our duty to challenge the powers that be. That's not what it said, but it's.
Which Robin Hood are we talking about? Are we talking about Kevin Costner or the Fox? The animated Fox one. They're like death to tyrants, death. To
not that one. Not that one.
Oh.
I think it was actually the recent one that no one watched.
Russell Crowe?
Oh yeah, I didn't even. Oh wait, there was one that I didn't watch. I forgot. Yeah, you're right.
That was Russell Crowe, wasn't it? Robin Hood.
I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Another thing I want to tell people is.
But I mean, the funny thing about Andor is that all the anti-authoritarian stuff that's in that is in most other Star Wars things. Yeah. You know, Bad Batch season 2, there was a lot of like thematic overlap with Andor in a way that really surprised me. And it seemed really intentional, almost in a way. Like there was a whole worker revolution prison kind of story. There was, dealing with the politics of the Senate. But it is. Like, that's why people talk about, like, I love Andor. I don't want all Star Wars to be Andor. And I don't think that Andor is more serious or more intelligent than other Star Wars. Because I'll say this, I have no designs to write a Star Wars show or film. But if you were to ask me to do it, it would be much easier if I could write it
about my messaging
than trying to do it in a 22-minute animated story that's accessible to kids with adventure. I think there are different skills at work in the writing and creation of these shows. Certain things like Andor is super political, but leaves the Force philosophy very ambiguous and up to interpretation. Whereas Ahsoka, there's political subtext with the New Republic and trying to get the fleets and this and that and Thrawn and all that, but it's more about the philosophy, the spiritual, the personal, the connection, the things she blames herself with Anakin, won't train Sabine, all that stuff. It's there if you look for it. But, some people, they're like, oh, Dave Filoni's putting his Rebels action figures in a show, and they dismiss that the story has any value. I swear to God, I saw a review that said Andor is better than Ahsoka because Andor has a theme and Ahsoka didn't. And I challenge you, write a story without a theme. You will fail. Every story inherently has a theme, whether you want it to or not, and it is this, and this wasn't like an outrage grifter. This was, I think, a person who just didn't meet Ahsoka on its terms. They were judging it for what it wasn't, as opposed to what it was, judging Andor for what it was.
I could write a story
interaction.
There is a fine line there.
Yeah. I could write a story
there are
without
some,
a theme,
I think, like what we would call good faith critics who shit on Star Wars. Not because they don't get it. I don't want to make it seem like that, but they critique it for what they wanted it to be rather than what it was. Yeah. And they take an uncharitable view of what these stories can do, especially because Andor was so direct, so explicit, and so unapologetically for grown-ups.
Yeah, shout out to Cal4 for being a member for 46 months. That is a long time. Much longer than the DYAD family. Appreciate you.
Also, I'm gonna shout out to Magic with Michaela, who came on here and just tore The Last Jedi a new one, and we had a great conversation about it. She hates that movie, but again, it was all good faith criticism of someone who was truly interacting with the media as intended. And yeah, we had a fantastic conversation. We always appreciate that.
Did you say you can't hear us anymore?
Oh, but you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, he can't hear you, Pep.
Interesting. I was wondering why he kept on. Is it possible for you to rejoin? Can you ask him? Because he can't hear me.
Oh, yeah. Is it possible for you to hop out and then try to rejoin?
Yeah, I could do that. Sure. I will. Yeah, I will do that.
Yeah. Sorry.
I put up the YouTube audio, but it's behind. That's not gonna work.
Yeah. It's gonna be too difficult.
All right. This isn't Star Trek, but it's like the transporter.
Let's see here. I might be stupid, but what is the theme for Pulp Fiction? Choco?
I haven't seen Pulp Fiction in a long time.
The theme of Pulp Fiction is Life is Strange.
Huh?
I mean, yeah, that's a video game, but it is. Life is Strange is the theme of Pulp Fiction. That's why it's called Pulp Fiction.
I've never seen Pulp Fiction. Should I watch? I mean, it's the classic. It's the movie that. So Samuel Jackson, I think that might have been his first role or one of his first roles, but basically he auditioned for a movie, didn't get it, and it turned out Tarantino was like, "Oh no, I wrote you a part in a different movie," and that was Pulp Fiction.
Can you hear me, Josh?
Yes, I can. Everything's back to normal. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I can write a story that without a theme. It's just gonna suck. It goes as follows.
You know,
once upon a
You know
time,
that would be a
carrots
fun challenge
existed.
because. Okay.
But then John closed his door, and we never saw him again. The end.
listen, we are going to get stories that don't have themes in the future because
Actually,
ChatGPT is capable of such.
Oh, yeah, that's possible. But here's the thing: the theme that I got from your very short story is that John is scared of nature, and so he closed his door. That's the critic's challenge. Like that's part of the job of being a critic. Like that's what I love.
Listen,
I turned lit crit class into a job.
All right, I'll give that to you.
Man versus nature is one of the oldest story tropes in the book. You know,
Choco, try to write
man versus machine.
a three sentence story without a theme.
I mean, like a haiku.
I mean, you can go 757 if you want. I like Cisco's shirt. I think haikus are easy or something. Haikus are very but the last of it was elevator or refrigerator. Sorry, refrigerator.
There was a time where I only posted my Facebook statuses as haiku because I was like, I'm trying to elevate social media.
I can't think of anything, but if you want to hear something without a theme, look up anything Jordan Peterson says.
No, that's just I'm scared of what's different from me. That's the theme in everything he said.
Oh, sorry.
Yes,
I'm
but that depends on what your definition of different means, because in this ever-changing universe, different could mean something very I can't even do what he does. It's just like a
Well, it's because you
box
inherently
of
operate
nothing.
from a place of good faith, and that you have to you really have to tap into the dark side to do what they do. You know what I mean?
It's a Russian nesting doll of nothing.
It was haikus are easy, but sometimes they don't make sense. Refrigerator. So yeah, go 575. Story without a theme.
Well, we we are almost hosting a podcast without a theme. We do at some point need to talk about
No, even if
What-
we
Oh my god, I didn't
what
realize
we're
it
talking
been
about.
we've been yapping for a while. Oh wow.
even if we didn't reach the main segment, the theme would have been Star Wars still, because that's what we've been talking about.
That's true. The real Star Wars is the friendships we made along the way.
Connor says, "What movie we seeing this June?" I'm seeing Ballerina tonight.
Yeah, definitely Ballerina. I don't know what else is out right now that I need
Karate
to
Kid?
see. Yeah, Karate Kid. I do need to see that as well.
Did you see Mission Impossible yet?
Yep.
No. I guess I have a bunch of stuff to go see.
The easiest way to do it, and what I've been doing, because for the longest time I've been an A-lister on AMC, and I've never, and like I've only used, you get 3 movies a week. I've only used like one like a month. But like now I'm making them pay me. Like literally 3.
Oh, they roll over the credits?
Hmm?
They roll over the credits or
No, they
for the
don't.
movies? Oh, see, I got the Cinemark one where they roll over the credits. So I'll like the lull of movies. I'll stack up credits, and then in the summertime, that's when I'll hit up my.
See, I had the Regal one, which didn't have a limit. Like I could just go whenever. And then my card changed, and it's been such a hassle because the app itself sucks really bad. And then I'm having to try and deal with customer service, and I just haven't been able to get it working again.
Choco's right. Peterson uses big words to trick people into thinking he's saying something, but if you really pay attention, he's not saying anything. The other thing he does is, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
You know, if you're talking
Clean
about
your room, boys.
foliated substrate calcite, he'll say, well, it depends on what you mean by the foliated and the substrate. And what is calcite? Are you talking metaphysically or are you talking substantively? And then you go, I'm talking substantively. Well, what do you mean by talking? You know?
Krennic would never put up with that.
No. Vader would have.
Krennic is too sassy. He's a sassy diva, and I love it.
More like
Really
one of my favorite things to do is watch Ben Mendelsohn do press for Andor, because there is not a guy happier to be in Star Wars than Ben Mendelsohn. I saw this one, and I don't understand the purpose of this other than just it's like a fun thing to do, I guess. But they were having him blind rank Star Wars characters. And like he kept he kept going. He's like, all right, keep going. And he was like not putting someone at one. And then he like yelled at the guy. He's like, you know what I'm doing? He's like, I think it was Han Solo. He's like, he's going to be 1 unless you got Luke Skywalker. If you don't have Luke Skywalker, then I'm going to change my answers. Like he was taking it so seriously.
I mean, just the head pointing scene. It was like, oh my God, I don't know. I love the debate he has with Mon Mothma. I can just watch that show.
We're 5 minutes into Choco trying to get us onto the main segment. But Connor says, wait, Josh, I'm looking at your Amazon. You make comics?
They're not actually comics. They are short story collections of like superhero inspired, comic inspired stories. So the covers look like a comic, but you're gonna get straight prose. But it is superheroes and people doing adventures and stuff. They're my favorite things that I've written.
I can imagine that experience. Like, oh man, this is awesome. Oh, what is this?
When I did the news, when I was doing the news, every night I would finish work and I would just be mad. And so I would write these little superhero stories to make myself feel better. And that's where these books came from. Tales of Adventure and Fantasy, I call them.
Nice.
I'm a Spooky Kid. It says, you sounded kind of like Werner Herzog.
Who?
You in your Jordan Peterson impression.
I would like to see the baby. What do you mean by baby?
Use the puppets, you cowards. What do you mean by puppet?
But yeah, just before Choco explodes, let's get into the main topic, which is the Hollywood Reporter has published their, I don't know if it's annual, but they published their write-up of the shakeup that's happening at Disney, with Bob Iger coming set to exit and Kathleen Kennedy set to step down in the coming months. They're talking about the hierarchy and the succession of just Disney properties in general. And one of the things that came up in that article, if you need a link, do you need a link, Choco?
We're talking about the Hollywood Reporter article.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, no, I've read it.
So, I mean, it came to Lucasfilm, right? And they say that Kathleen Kennedy is months away from stepping down. She's still going to retain producership on some of the movies that she's working on currently, but stepping down from being president, and they speculate that the choices to succeed her that most make sense is Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck. Now, Carrie Beck is of Story Group fame, and Dave Filoni is of studying under George Lucas, being a producer on Clone Wars, and he's the chief creative officer now. Now, I wanted to get the chat's opinions and Josh's, and of course Choco's opinions on this postulation, because I think for better or worse, I think me and Choco are in agreement that Filoni should remain creative. But let us know what you guys think. Josh, what are your thoughts?
So, I think we need to to put it in context. Remember, I think that this report in the Hollywood Reporter is a response to that article that came out from Matthew Filoni, who I think I'm pronouncing his name right, but he has this weird thing where he just does not like Kathleen Kennedy. He writes stuff for Puck that is like trying to be a new trade newsletter. I mean, he's a veteran Hollywood Reporter, but you would think one of these YouTube guys wrote the stuff that he writes about Kathleen Kennedy. So this report of him, the report of her like stepping down and the succession fight, it matched a pattern of the way he talks about the Lucasfilm hierarchy. So again, she's 71, 72, something like that. So, obviously she's going to step down at some point. And I think that this article is maybe sort of an on background response to maybe calm the industry, calm shareholders that, there is a succession plan in place, and they have, these two most common names. Now, I don't know if that's like that's been leaked to them, like they are the front runners. First of all, Dave Filoni from Mount Lebanon, just across the river from me. That's why I'm wearing the black and gold. I'm rooting for Dave Filoni. I love the stuff he's done. And Carrie Beck, I don't know much about her beyond where I've just, seen her name on the credits and seen her interviewed in like behind the scenes features and other promo things. But it strikes me that, again, Kathleen Kennedy is a singular figure in Hollywood. I mean, if not for Kevin Feige and the MCU, she would probably be hands down the most successful film producer of all time. I mean, E.T., all the indies, Land Before Time, American Tail, Goonies, Ghostbusters, or not Ghostbusters, Gremlins. Like she's touched so many things that like people my age, the people who are the worst to her, love and adore. Like, put respect on her name. That's how I feel. But
absolutely, honestly, I think her resume is stronger than Feige's. Feige's might have more dollars behind it, but let's be honest,
and it's more recent.
The MCU, a lot of the movies are mid. They just connect, Yeah.
But I think that what's going to happen is the Filoni Carrie Beck thing. I think that might be like a James Gunn Peter Safran situation at DC Studios, because one person can't. There is no Kathleen Kennedy Jr. at Lucasfilm, someone who has that sort of producerial skill and whatever role she plays in the creative aspect of it. I mean, I think she, from what I've heard, and I don't know how true it is that she's mostly a veto kind of person. They'll be like, we want to do this, and she's like, no, you're not. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think she like says you have to do this, but she's the reason that like Ron Howard directed Solo and not the Chris Lord and Phil Miller, and she's the reason that Colin Trevorrow's Duel of the Fates was set aside to bring JJ back, because of the way that the story, I think that she cares about the stories trying to match what you could say it's the brand or what Lucas's vision was. I think like she has a specific idea about what Star Wars is, and I love the fact that Tony Gilroy is out here singing her praises. I mean, because they have a long history together, friendship, and that Andor is part of that. Like, Andor is clearly part of that vision. So, there is no other Kathleen Kennedy. So I think that the idea of Filoni and Beck taking over as like in a co-president situation might be like Filoni does the creative thing, And maybe even like James Gunn with Superman, will write and direct some things here there. And I think that Carrie Beck, she might be more the logistical producerial side, where, you know, she'll get the sets, get the cast, get the things lined up. I mean, it could work. And I can't think of any other person at Lucasfilm or even Disney or Hollywood that would be a better steward of Star Wars with the history and, you know, yeah. I mean, I have no other names to suggest. I mean, I'm kind of with you guys in that I'd like to see Filoni sticking to what he does best, which is writing, directing, being creative. But he cares about Star Wars. He cares about the studio, and I think that, you know, you need that in executives, or it will become the thing that people think it is, like a cheap cash grab, cynical this, cynical that. So
Yeah.
that's just my take. I mean, and who knows if they're even right.
I do like the names though. So Carrie Beck, aside from Dave Filoni, it would probably be the closest thing to what Dave Filoni is. So she joined in 2013, and she got her start as a associate producer on Rebels, and she has thus since then been, you know, co-EP and EP on all live action and animation. She's got her hands on everything, and now she's the VP of live action and animation. So definitely executive material, especially, you know, having been EP on all of these projects since the acquisition, and she's a member of the story group, so she understands the continuity and the lore of things as well. So I'm trying to imagine a perfect scenario where Dave Filoni and her kind of, if we're talking about a Gunn and Saffron situation, be kind of like, you know, Filoni takes the green lighting of projects from a creative standpoint, and Carrie takes the executive portion of that job. But
I mean, from what you're saying, that really just feels like Carrie Beck getting Kathleen's job, and Filoni roughly stays where he is, but takes on some extra responsibility, which I'm not opposed to. Again, you know, this article is speculation. There is a lot of turnover happening in Hollywood. There's a lot of turnover happening in executives all over the country, which is another thing that this article, you know, talks about. But I honestly don't think Kathleen is going anywhere for the next couple of years. And again, like it says, even when she's no longer president, she's still going to be there. She's still going to be around. She's not going to dip out completely. But yeah, eventually she's going to retire, right? So everyone's saying that she, you know, has retired. Eventually, 5 years from now, you'll be right. Like, you'll be right eventually, or she'll just die. I don't know, of old age.
Here's the big question mark. When she does, and if Filoni or Beck happens, let's say let's game out Filoni getting the position. It's just Filoni. Does he become the new pariah?
He already is. He's already becoming that.
I was gonna say, it's already started.
They've already turned on him.
Tony Gilroy now.
Well, let me rephrase that, because I mean, does he become the new Kathleen Kennedy to the extent? Yeah.
Does he wear the Force's female shirt? Because that seemed to what turned him. That seemed to what do it. That broke their brains.
He did speak at a women's conference, Women in Films conference.
That was a great speech. No, but again, I think absolutely. So before, people used him as their champion, like the Grifters use him as their champion. There's a war going on at Lucasfilm and all this stuff, which wasn't really happening, right? You know, Dave Filoni is her biggest, like, she's his biggest cheerleader, and vice versa, and that's always been the case. You know, she's basically given him the keys to the kingdom. Like, no one else other than Kevin Feige is doing this many projects, or just being handed, what do you want to do? Sure, do it, make it, you know, make 5 shows at the same time or whatever. So I think people started to realize that if he gets put in charge, things aren't going to change. He's not going to retcon the sequels. You know, that stuff isn't going to happen. And I feel like the grifters knew this, and they're like, okay, we have to slowly turn on Dave before she retires, so it's not a switch up on our part, but we can continue to make the same exact content.
Yeah,
It gives them more strategy than I would give them credit for, but
that's
how's
true.
it going, Henrique? On the TikTok side, Filoni's becoming that right now, and Andor didn't help him any bit. What does that mean?
well, if people have been
there's a
using the
weird
quality of Andor to shit on Ahsoka and the stuff that's accessible to kids, the stuff that we celebrated Filoni for when it was Rebels or in the early first two seasons of The Mandalorian, because of the Star Wars version of the Overton window, I suppose, like the like it wasn't lore enough, and now it's too much. Like Filoni throwing Zeb in Mandalorian season 3 is apparently that hurt season 3. Now I agree it didn't have to be Zeb, it could have been any old pilot, but it didn't take away from the story.
I can't wait for the time where people start saying Dave Filoni doesn't understand Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean it's coming.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But
now I have a question
these are
for Choco and Pep. If you guys ever do you guys dive into the like behind the scenes features on the DVDs and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just was recently looking through them again because I'm all up in my Star Wars business after Andor, and I've noticed like maybe she showed up for the day they were filming for the DVD. I don't know, but I noticed that in like meetings where they were coming up with like costumes and story thing, like Kathleen Kennedy was always like around at the table. So I would think that the reason the split would happen, and like I think she's also doing the producer stuff where she like lines up studio space, sets, whatever producers do. So I think that if it's just Carrie Beck, if it's just Dave Filoni in title, I feel like it'll be the same functionally as if they do both get like a co-president role. Dave Filoni will take her place in those meetings where they're picking spaceships, picking costumes, picking story elements, and Carrie Beck will be, trying to build Pisana in the middle of Jordan where there's no roads. You know what I mean? Like, trying to get to film on Skellig Michael Island where you can't bump the huts or they'll fall down. You know what I mean? Like that's I think the thing that they would share, and whether it's both or one, I think that would functionally, that would be the job. Again, just pure gaming it out.
I definitely
know
think,
nothing from Adam.
I definitely think to your point of being functionally the same. It's always been like a pet peeve of mine that people think that when Lucasfilm was purchased by Disney, that they pulled the rug from underneath Lucasfilm and installed Disney. But like Chang, Sostak, and all of those people are still there. Hidalgo, everybody that worked under George was still there, save for a few people that aren't there anymore. But like people at ILM, they're all still there. You can see their young faces in the ILM documentary with their old faces in new documentaries. They've been working on Star Wars, so it's not like everyone was suddenly a Disney hire. Kathleen Kennedy was being shuffled in by George Lucas before the acquisition. He was talking to Charlie Rose. He's like, I was getting ready to hand over the keys to Kathleen Kennedy. And then in Iger's book, he was like, I don't know why he did that. I guess he just wanted to secure somebody that's on his side before we bought.
Yeah, he knew Kathleen Kennedy would have she has the experience and if you'll forgive the term, the balls to fight Disney executives like Iger and them trying to, because Bob Iger is very much a micromanager. One of the things I've been writing about a lot this year is Lost, because it turned 20, and the way Lost was made is very interesting because Bob Iger, he came from ABC, and he would micromanage ABC's schedule. The guy in charge of ABC, a guy named Lloyd Braun, he had $100,000 budget thing. Like if he could spend $100,000, and then after that he had to get permission from Iger, and that was done so Iger could keep control. But because ABC was failing, it was always the fourth network, and Michael Eisner was not going to be CEO anymore and wasn't that popular. Iger stepped back from ABC to not be tarnished with that failure and gave Lloyd Braun that freedom for like until he was about to get fired for ABC sucking. But in that time, he greenlit Lost, he greenlit Desperate Housewives, and he greenlit Grey's Anatomy. That season after he got fired, when Bob Iger stepped away, ABC had the 3 #1 shows on television. And I feel like that feels a lot kind of like what's going on at Disney now. Like Iger is, I'm not saying Bob Chapek was great or not. I think he was, I don't know what he did.
Well, let's be honest. Bob Iger, again, didn't want any failure on his record because COVID hit, and he's like, he wasn't going to retire until like the following year or maybe the year after that, and he was just like, deuces, y'all, and dropped this whole thing in Chapek's lap. And so I mean, again.
And that's why he would wheel Kennedy out to announce stuff that isn't ready, like Lando and Rangers of the New Republic and these films. Like he was like, tell the shareholders something. And, and then when Kennedy's like, this stuff isn't good, we're not going to put out a bad product. It looks like she's bad at managing the studio because this project's canceled. But really, she is protecting the quality of the work and the Lucasfilm name.
Now, if we're talking about Disney in general, can we just like have someone other than Bob?
How come they've never had a Mickey? Wouldn't it be great to have a guy named Mickey run Disney?
I mean, listen, we got a guy named Bowser who runs Nintendo,
yes.
So like it is possible. By the way, anyone, if you are not watching The Studio on Apple TV, go watch it. Phenomenal show. It's about what we're talking about. It's about, Seth Rogen wants to make these great, deep, artistic films. And then the studio is always getting in the way, and they're like, nah, man, we're going to make the Kool-Aid film. And then, it's a great show. Go watch it.
Yeah. I mean, with that being said, I think whatever happens is going to happen. And I don't think things are going to change, especially if it's either Filoni or Carrie Beck or both. I think Filoni is responsible for a lot of the things that we love, and Carrie Beck is also equally responsible for a lot of things that we love post-Disney acquisition. And so should either of them or both of them do some kind of team up or duo in terms of co-presidentship, nothing's going to change really.
Listen, the only thing I care about is, please, for the love of God, make Jen Corbett the next Dave Filoni. Okay, I need that Bad Batch passion, because all those characters were deep and well created and stuff. I want her in more creative projects.
Yep, that's for sure. Spooky says, I walked in on my girlfriend watching Grey's Anatomy once, and there was 2 conjoined twins fighting over a woman that was somehow having an affair with one of them. I lost sleep trying to figure that out.
Drama.
I mean, listen. Sorry, you were asleep. You're like, I was just right there. I'm always right here.
That also kind of let's go into the bonus segment really quick, because that actually brings me, because I wanted to come from a place as strong as Choco comes from in terms of the expanded universe. So I started reading Heir to the Empire, and I'm gonna go through all of New Jedi, Legacy, and then Fate, or whatever order that comes in, Dark Nest as well.
Dark Nest sucks.
And
but you do have to read.
Where do you make the Yuuzhan Vong?
I know about the Yuuzhan Vong, but yeah, I haven't read that story through and through. But I don't know why I didn't come to this realization earlier. But how uninspired is following twins with twins?
Yeah.
Padme has twins, Luke and Leia, and then like, okay, what happens after Return of the Jedi? Leia has twins too. Like, come on.
It's funny.
Technically, it is more likely to have twins if you are a twin. I think that's actually a thing. I'll have to double check that.
Well, as an OT generation guy, what's funny is that I felt about the original post Heir to the Empire, New Jedi Order canon about kind of the way people feel about the sequels now. Like Dark Empire, a beautiful comic. Love looking at the art. I was really mad that Luke, even if it's like a fake out or whatever they try to do, like I was mad he went to the dark side. Heir to the Empire, it annoys me that Thrawn is so good, like he's almost too good in a way that's like, all right, you
It wasn't really
and
a
then
fake out, though. I mean, he said, "I'm gonna try to change Palpatine or change things from the inside," and he straight up falls. He's like, "Damn, I was wrong."
Yeah, yeah.
Leia's like, "I told you."
Yeah, look, it was funny because again, that we were getting new Star Wars. We didn't have new Star Wars, and that was new Star Wars, and that's why I, in a way, I kind of sympathize with people who brush up against the sequels, because I know what it's like to be like, here's the brand new Star Wars, the brand new Luke Skywalker story, and I don't like it. You know what I mean? Now, here's what I didn't do. I didn't go find people reading that comic, smack it out of their hands, and tell them they don't know Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I tried to enjoy what I could, and I stuck with it as long as I can with my problems. And, I bailed when they killed Chewie. I'll tell you what, if The Rise of Skywalker, if that hadn't been a fake out, I might have very different feelings about that movie. You don't kill Chewie on my watch.
That's also something something from The Last Jedi that I game out frequently in my mind is if Ben didn't wake up. And it's something that I say to a lot of people who think that the failure was Luke attempting to, or igniting the lightsaber. But that wasn't the failure at all. The failure was what led to that, which is what Rey says. You failed Ben by thinking he had already made his choice, right? It wasn't the ignition, because that was just a reflex, and he wasn't paying attention to Ben. And then, he's like, oh crap, that was wrong. And then he looks at Ben, because Ben woke up. So what if that happens? Ben's still asleep, and he's like, let's just walk out of this hut slowly. That's a different
like
story.
Homer Simpson into a bush.
Yeah. How do you think the story changes?
I think he falls eventually. I mean, again, he was being targeted by Snoke Palpatine. He had that feeling, because the thing that I think that's interesting about Ben Solo is that, he is Star Wars like most Nepo baby. Like, I actually wrote an article that some people might find a little controversial, but I wrote for CBR about that I think Rey Palpatine is a stronger thematic choice than Rey Nobody. I understand why people connected to Rey Nobody, especially with Ben Solo being like the, connected to the Skywalkers, connected to Han Solo. I also feel like Star Wars is full of nobodies, though, and
that was where I ended up falling. Is like Anakin was a nobody. Like,
and I think again, acknowledging that this is a story that has to happen in a certain way. I think that Solo eventually falls because the guy who is connected to the lightest side family is going to go dark, and the girl connected to the darkest side family is going to go light. And then, they both come back in the end because it's Star Wars. But yeah, I don't know when it would have been. Like maybe after he was a Jedi Knight or whatever. I mean, I don't know. The question I have is, what was the nature of the Jedi? Like the people that Luke were training and the missions that they did. Like, was he doesn't seem to be in Mandalorian, in Boba Fett, he doesn't seem to be working for the new Senate. He seems to be just doing his own thing.
No,
it's entirely separate. Yeah.
The Last Jedi.
In the comics, what we largely see of Luke is he's still in the process of rebuilding, and so that means he's going off to old temples and trying to find old knowledge to
traveling with Lor Santeca.
Yeah.
Like, there he is.
Oh, by the way, Josh, if you have you read Leia Bloodlines yet?
Oh yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I was like,
Slayer, baby.
You would love that if you haven't read it, but
The only thing about Bloodlines that bothers me is it ruined my one argument that I always like to make, that like Leia is the best hero of Star Wars, because all that happens to her, she never gets tempted by the dark side, unlike Luke. But in that one, she talks about, like, they talk about how when she was killing the Hutt, she felt that dark side rush.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, listen, she was made a slave. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, he put her in a gold bikini, you know?
He
like,
sure did. Oh, I'm not saying he didn't have it coming.
Yeah.
Henrik says, for me, Luke felt the literal screams of trillions who got their planets destroyed by Starkiller Base. Yeah, no, I mean, it's literally the soundtrack
That's the audio.
matches what Finn heard or sensed in The Force Awakens. So there's that. There's, you know, he could have seen the death of Han. He could have seen fragmentedly, like, Leia being blasted out of the, even though it wasn't Kylo that did that, being blasted out of the bridge and, you know, going off in space. There could have been a number of things that he saw. But it was always the thought that was the only thing that could be. The fear of that made Luke twinge.
Well, that's how prophecies work in Star Wars. You get this prophecy, and then whatever you do makes that thing come true. It's Anakin having the dreams of Padme, the Chosen One prophecy. You know, Luke saw these things, and it scared him, and he had that, like, a human reaction, because again, light side is an active thing, and everyone makes mistakes, and it then caused this thing to happen that he saw. You know, and the other thing I think is interesting is I don't think we've ever seen the actual moment that Luke ignited his lightsaber and Ben Solo crushed the temple on him. Like, we see the one from Kylo's perspective where Luke's all like, ah, and then we see the one from we get the first one from sort of Luke's perspective, that is
one,
that Luke, like, he looks better. And I think the third one we get is Rey. You know, the way I always read the movie was that it wasn't like, oh, this is what exactly happened. I think this was Rey trying to give them both the benefit of the doubt, and then, you know, trying to reconcile the two ideas into what we get. I don't think that we've ever actually seen that moment as it actually happened. You know, I think that the interpretation...
there's no direct third-party view.
No witnesses.
But
also, going back to your reading of Rey Nobody versus Rey Palpatine.
Yes.
The thing that I always fall back on to kind of reconcile with that decision is the poetry of it all, and I like saying that. And Choco has probably heard this, like, for the...
Well, it's like poetry. It rhymes. I mean, each stanza rhymes with the next.
Yeah.
At least that's the hope.
Palpatine turned Skywalker. Skywalker turned Palpatine. It's poetry. The other poetry that I thought would have been awesome is Kenobi, because then you would have the fight on water instead of fight on lava, and it's the two grandchildren.
I mean, that still works in that same way, though. Like, where, you know, even though she's not related to Kenobi, that is the fight. Like, it is the opposite of Mustafar. Yeah. And instead of lava, it's the water, and that's where, you know, Ben Solo comes back. I think it works. I think you can make that argument.
And instead of swinging around on random bullshit, he jumps over waves.
Sometimes he walks through them all smoldering and letting the saber, like, hiss at the water drops. I mean, listen. My
favorite part of the Mustafar fight is when they're standing on those poor droids. They're in the lava, and I just, you know, because, you know, droids have thoughts. They, you know, they're just like, come on, man. Like, I'm trying
this
to
is a blatant violation of my...
So many OSHA violations. No, my mind immediately just goes to the Flintstones of, like, the Flintstones always have animals doing jobs, and it's like, it's a living.
I will say, no matter how low The Rise of Skywalker is on my ranking, the Death Star 2 fight with Rey and Kylo is high up there in terms of storytelling potential and its symbolism. You know, I think it does a lot of heavy lifting for Rise of Skywalker for me, and I know a lot of people dog on it because they're swinging slow and they don't have classical training. Stop it.
I understand why people brush up against the Rise of Skywalker, and I can't even, I admit that there are like 2.5 movies in that movie. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot going on there. But and I understand why maybe they wouldn't like the choices or whatever that happens. I would say that if you have an opinion about why the movie is like that, because again, not to keep plugging my stuff, but I did just write an article to again dispel the myth. I mean, in both an article on CBR and in my book, Divided Allegiance, on Amazon, about Star Trek and Star Wars, I write about how Last Jedi, the Rise of Skywalker only works if you accept that it basically says yes and to everything that happens in The Last Jedi. It does not retcon it. It does not walk it back. Absolutely. There is no... They weren't obsessed about like what the fans were saying or whatever. I urge people to watch the legacy of the Skywalker legacy or the legacy of Skywalker. It's the making of that movie. Like if you watch, and again, this is a Lucasfilm produced documentary, so it's not like the hard raw footage. But I mean, everyone, no one's that good of an actor on a crew or whatever. Everyone involved loves what they're doing and is trying to make the coolest movie they can. Whether it works that way or not, that is entirely up to you, and there is no wrong answer about what Star Wars you like or what Star Wars you don't like. But when you say Rise of Skywalker hates The Last Jedi or is a cynical whatever, now you're getting into an area where your opinion is not correct. And I think there is evidence to say that there are people who did care about what this was beyond just these reasons we invent, so that's why I always watch the behind the scenes stuff, because you get an appreciation for what goes into making this.
Listen, I obsessively consume everything surrounding it just because I know I'm going to be lied to by a bunch of people and I'd rather just know, you know what I mean? And so I fully agree with you. And like, I hate it that as a talking point, because the whole issue is that this whole thing has been built on lies from the very beginning, right? So like the very first thing people will say is like, well, they threw out, there was no plan, they didn't do any planning, and right, which makes people mad. You're going to touch my favorite thing as a child with no plan? That's upsetting. That sets you on the back foot. You're already against them. That's not true, right? They had an IP development group. They created a framework for it all the way back in 2014. They had Pablo Hidalgo. They had Dave Filoni on it. They had Carrie Beck on it. And they talked about, they knew Luke was going to die in episode 7. They knew, in episode 8, and they knew episode 9 was going to be Leia's movie, and Rey was always going to be the Skywalker. All of that stuff has been planned from the beginning. So people are like, oh, well, Rian Johnson just wanted to kill Luke to be edgy or whatever. Like, no, that was already planned. Oh no, the two directors are fighting back and forth. Like, no, they were working with each other. A couple times. Yeah, JJ was the EP on The Last Jedi. He was sending him dailies. Ryan asked him to change certain things at the end of the film to make things work better, and he did. But they built. Oh well, no, it's just they only want to make it girl power stuff. That's why she wore the Force's female shirt, and you're like, that had nothing to do with Star Wars. Like, but Kathleen said. I had someone actually say this. Kathleen said she wanted to have a female direct a Star Wars movie, so she's not actually looking for the best people. And I was like, when did she say that? To this person's credit, they sent me the article, and she did say that in 2015. Kathleen's like, I'd like to have a woman direct a Star Wars film, but we're not going to do it if the story's not there. It's been 10 years, and we haven't had a woman direct a Star Wars film. Like,
we got Deborah Chow and Bryce Dallas Howard on the TV side, at least.
On the TV side, yeah. But overall, it's just lie after lie after lie, and it puts this there's this civil war happening at Lucasfilm and all of this stuff. And so like nothing makes any sense anymore. But yeah, what you're saying is absolutely correct. The movies don't retcon each other. I had someone try to say, when he says a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect, that's because that was trying to make fun of The Last Jedi. You're like, no, that's not a retcon. That's regular continuity. He learned a lesson in this movie.
Yeah, he's making fun of himself. And Luke, as a Force ghost, the thing that I again, because I rewatched Rise of Skywalker recently before I wrote this article for CBR just so I was tight on my details. In Last Jedi, Yoda is the silliest that we ever see him as a Force ghost. Like, it's as if being a Force ghost, he has I'm gonna push back on that.
He's as silly as he's been all the time. It's in character.
See, I don't think he was that silly in Empire. He
meets Luke
more,
by
he would
come on.
Yeah,
What's
but
the first thing he says to Luke? Yeah,
but that's him doing a work, Pep. I mean, and then because then he's like, "You will be. I can't train him." Like he's
being silly. He's high on that Geimer stick.
When he said he will be, that scared the crap out of me as a kid.
I know the way his mouth moves. Oh,
yeah.
But I think I will say that he is at his lightest, his lightest of spirit as a Force ghost. And I think that is what Luke is doing too. That's why he's able to make fun of himself in that moment. And then because his next line to Rey is like, "What are you doing?" Like, it is that, like, the tone of that is clear that he has that same awareness now. He understands that, like, okay, this is serious. It's not as serious as you're making it. You have everything you need. Yeah. You are going. It's. I think it works really, really well, and it annoys me when people point to that as like, and I mean, sure, was it maybe a meta joke for us? Absolutely, just like it was a meta thing for Kylo Ren to be like, get rid of the past, kill it if you have to. But I think Rian Johnson put it in the villain's mouth so we would know that's not the thesis of the film.
That's wrong. We learn from the past.
Yeah,
and. I don't know. Maybe this is something you've already written, or it could be a future article. The funny thing to me is that we had Into the Spider-Verse come out, and that is The Last Jedi. It's the same movie, and no one talks about it. They all love it, and they just I don't know. I don't know what the difference is.
I've never thought of it that way, but. I mean, I think I have to watch Into the Spider-Verse again, which thank you for that. I'm excited to do that.
Kenny Aaron says... Oh, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say that I think that's a good
Luke's
read on
journey
it.
is the same as Spider-Man's journey.
Yeah.
Kenny Aaron says, I think Yoda just likes to mess with Luke. That's why I think he's always been high on his kite. You know what I mean? Like, the first thing he says to Luke is, "Looking, found someone of you." And then, like, the first thing he says to Luke in The Last Jedi, he's still laughing. I think Yoda's just a jokester. Honestly, I think he gets it from having trained all of the younglings. Like, he's in front of the kids. He's like, "Oh, the mind of a child." Like, that's how he is.
I think he has to be joyful and have to keep it light. Because he's such a long-lived species that he's seen so much death. Like, he just has to.
Even on his deathbed.
You know what I mean?
Even on his deathbed, he was high. Like,
that's true.
Listen, wouldn't you be?
Tired, sleep.
And then Luke is like, "I need to be the best Jedi," or something. He's like, "Jedi, not yet."
I just love that he would rather die than answer Luke in that moment. He's just like, "No, man, I'm out. I can't deal with another Skywalker."
Jesus.
Holy crap.
I frequently imagine what happens when the curtain closes on the Acolyte scene. It's like, "I need to talk to you, Master," and he's like, "Oh, busy am I?" Trolling Luke to the end. Yeah, exactly. I love how in The Last Jedi, Luke gets mad that Yoda burnt the Jedi texts, and then Yoda instantly calls him out for not reading them. I mean, that's how we treat the fans that appeal to the EU a lot.
Yeah.
Read them, have you?
The new Jedi Order page turners. They were not. No, I'm kidding. If you like.
No, the Yuuzhan Vong are disgusting, and I hate them with every fiber of my
Oh, God.
being. Okay,
This makes me so mad. I did not like it. I did not like it.
and I'll also say this: Thrawn, amazing villain. The end of that series, anticlimactic. And it's because the villain was too good. They just were like, the end.
I was made aware of the meme that like they have a meme of Thrawn like in Heir to the Empire he's playing like 40 chess, and then like in the new Thrawn books he's like playing checkers, and then like in Rebels he's like playing tic-tac-toe or something. And I'll tell you what, I think the new Thrawn books, I think he is a much more believable kind of bad guy, because I feel like I could see the hand of the author Timothy Zahn in the original Heir to the Empire trilogy, because you know the Rebels would be trying something and I'd be like, oh, is Thrawn gonna beat this? And I'm like, we got 150 pages left. Yeah, he's gonna see this one coming. You know, so there was like Thrawn is on his back foot more in the new books, and I think that makes him a more formidable adversary, because he's able to recover and he's able to adjust. Whereas in Heir to the Empire, it's like as soon as he gets his predictions wrong, his whole shit falls apart. You know what I mean? I mean, and again, I haven't read it in a long time, so maybe I'm misremembering some of those details. But
because I am reading it right now,
he has weaknesses. He has weaknesses in the new stuff. Like he doesn't understand the political side of things, which makes him an interesting character. He's strategic. He'll predict what you're going to do, but he doesn't understand this greater realm that's politics, and then this even greater realm that's the Force. That makes him interesting. I feel like all of the expanded universe stuff, which I do love, but everyone was Chads. Everyone was super awesome and super hype, and like every hero, you know, I always talk about what's his face from the X-Wing books.
Wedge.
No. Cornhorn?
Yes, Cornhorn.
Oh.
How Cornhorn was just a Chad, right? He was the lead investigator, and he's like trying to uncover his father's death. He's also the greatest pilot, and it turns out his grandfather's a Jedi, and he has the Force. And there's all these beautiful women, and they're always trying to sleep with him all the time. And he's just like, "Nah, baby, I got a mission tomorrow." And they're like, "Please," and he's like, "Nah." And like that's every single
no, you're right.
Every single book, and you're like, damn, he's just like, this is weird. I'm enjoying it. He's like, I don't know how to get out of here. And then he mind tricks a room full of stormtroopers after finding out his grandpa was a Jedi like 3 minutes ago. It's, I don't know.
Surely not without training.
I'm wondering, since you said that the end of the Thrawn books was a little bit anticlimactic, if you could confirm that is in fact true. As I'm reading this right now, there's one section, well no, it's the beginning of the book really, where he says this is called the Mount Sable maneuver, and then the next line is the battle ended after an hour, and I was like, well, where's the battle? He just does this brilliant maneuver that the Illumin can't counter physiologically, which is odd, and then it's like, and then the battle ended. I was like, well, what the hell? Is that basically what I'm in for?
I mean, there's a very convoluted, like his plot gets convoluted in the like other books. Like it gets real involved.
There are a great read. Like you will enjoy it. I will say Timothy Zahn got better at writing space battles in the newer stuff. Although he still uses the word salvo way too much.
We all have our crutch words, right? We all have our crutch words.
Bring our weapons to bear. Let's see here.
But the surrounding cast of that book is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, Garn Bell Iblis comes in, Talon Card comes in.
I just read the chapter where Talon Card comes in.
Oh, Talon Card, that's my dude. I like him. I liked him a lot.
Oh, did we beat Master Chief Kenobi? He's not even here. The loser.
No, he left early. Yeah.
I think Yoda was mastering his rage bait on Dagobah while waiting on Luke. Man.
You're not wrong. From a certain point of view, Yoda is literally trolling the dark side. The dark side, the concept of the dark side. Yeah.
He also
Oh, this
just
is from a
like,
certain
didn't
point of view
want it
books.
to be
It's so
Luke.
good.
Yeah.
What was the quote? What was the direct quote from Yoda? Or was it Obi-Wan? He's like, I would have much rather trained Leia.
Oh yeah. That was from Obi-Wan's perspective, I think.
Yeah. It's like, why couldn't it have been Leia? That's what he said.
Yeah.
Why couldn't it have been Leia? And it's true. I don't know where people get this notion of Luke that they've bought into, you know, because it's certainly not in the EU, from my understanding, from what Choco says. You know, from what Choco has told me, there's a lot of temptation. There's a lot of hesitation and reticence from Luke when it comes to his family, and there's no version of Luke that I see that is all good. And
It's from the action figures. It's from playing toys on your living room floor with Luke. Like, I mean, that is the Star Wars. Like, everyone's been writing Star Wars in their head since whatever trilogy it ends on. You know, there are sequel kids out there now writing Finn, Poe's, Rose's, and Rey's next adventures, you know, with their toys or in their head or on their phones, maybe. I don't know how the kids use technology. But, you know, I think that is sort of the way it's always been. And I think that we do come to this idea where the hero, like, our headcanon is the version of the hero we want. You know what I mean? And I admit there's a part of me.
Yeah.
I remember when Last Jedi was filming, they were in, I forget what city, but they were filming what turned out to be the Fathier chase. And there were like cars going and people flying. And I remember someone on the Star Wars Leaks subreddit was like, oh, that's Luke. He's messing everybody up. And there was a moment where I just imagined like a circumstance where that would make sense, where Luke is just busting up this city street. And it was great. Like, it was wonderful. Would it make a good movie? Probably not. It probably wouldn't. You know what I mean? But we all kind of like every, especially us OT kids, Luke Skywalker is very important to us. You know what I mean? Like the ones who, weren't like Han is the coolest because he kills people and Luke doesn't. You know, Luke, him not killing Vader was unlike any 80s movie action hero. Like, bad guys died. That was winning in 80s movies, you know?
Like, I could say for certain that as much as I laud the way they executed the Battle of Crate and Luke doing the most Jedi thing, which was non-violently,
the most light side battle of all time,
I can still acknowledge that it would have been cool to see him non-violently destroy the walkers with his bare hands and show some kind of newish power ceiling that we haven't seen before, because, you know, he is what Anakin would have been, you know. But like, even then, when I first saw the effects of the projection, I was like, is he one with the Force right now? Or is this what are we seeing Super Saiyan Luke? Like, is he just like Tuda Menace his body?
Went straight up Obito on him. Yeah. I just again, I've heard that as a complaint. No, Luke should have been crushing walkers and all this stuff. People wanted to see Luke killing people, and you're like, but that is not Luke. You know, I hear the complaint. Well, how come he didn't just go to Ben? You know, he wouldn't just you know, not try to get him. You know, like, it was on site. Did you not see what Ben's reaction was to seeing him? Listen, it's not something. He was not the person to bring him back, and that's the whole point.
He shows up, like, and he's like, "Hi, Ben." It's the scene with Kylo doesn't change. He goes, "I want every weapon to fire upon that man right now."
Absolutely.
Well,
like,
here, no budget.
and also there's this weird idea of like, oh, they're trying to like feminize Star Wars or whatever, and you're like, my God, Luke was a twink in Chanel boots who conquered the galaxy with love. Like this is not the movie you thought it was. But the problem is, it's a whole concept of death of the author, right? You view it in, it's whatever it means to you is what it means, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's a franchise and there's more movies. And so to you, it's this based off of these 3 movies. The next movie comes out and what you wanted no longer fits. Yeah. And now you have this, weird internal conflict where like, no, I'm not wrong. Star Wars is wrong. And that's just a weird thought.
Star Wars.
Well, it's just like I said, I living through, again, I remember Luke was a pussy for not killing Darth Vader. The Ewoks were teddy bears. They weren't the Viet Cong. It wasn't an allegory. It wasn't clever like that. It's just teddy bears to sell toys. Boba Fett went out like a punk. That's disrespectful for some reason. And then Phantom Menace.
He said 4 words.
The one I remember was from the shippers back then, who said that Leia being Luke's sister destroys the love triangle, and I was like,
I forgot about that.
I
Yes,
hated the love triangle idea of this.
Yeah, I forgot about that too. Yeah, because again, I was little. I didn't care about the kissy parts. But the funny thing is that the prequels come out, and all of a sudden, all this time I had to spend defending Return of the Jedi. I don't need to do that anymore because that's now the holy trilogy, and George Lucas has effed up Star Wars with this prequels, and then
before that was
years,
the special editions.
Oh, that's right, the special editions. He ruined your childhood. Absolutely, I remember that. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a little mad about Yub Nub. It stings. I'm a Yub Nub truther.
Me too.
But what's funny is that, like, here we are 15 years later, Star Wars Force Awakens is coming out, and all of a sudden, wait, the George Lucas trilogy is perfect. They're perfect. The Disney Star Wars is what sucks. And I was like, wait a minute, hey, what? So it's, I really wonder if in 5 more years, they will finally get, that Rey movie out. I forget the director's name. I think that's yes. Oh, I hope that happens. I want to see it. But that movie will come out, and then all of a sudden, it'll be like, this isn't like the sequels that understood Star Wars.
This is out of character for Rey. Back in the sequels, Rey was like this. Like, you thought Rey was a Mary Sue that had no flaws, won every match, and every time she lost, it didn't happen.
But if it happens, it'll warm my heart in a way, because I'll be like, oh, it really just is the cycle. It's the people who they can't reject the dark side of the fandom, and so they have to live in it. But then eventually, because the light side always wins in the end, 15 years later, they'll be like, that's not how light speed skipping works.
I gotta ask, do you remember when Mara Jade was hated for being a Mary Sue?
Can I plead the fifth on this podcast, because I may or may not have not been a fan of Mara Jade. I didn't say Mary Sue because I don't think I even knew what that term was back then, but I just remember being like, what is this? Oh, and I was like, was she the Wrath of the Emperor, the Hand of the Emperor? I forget.
The hand. Yeah.
I was like, oh, you mean, isn't that Vader's job? Like, I was, if they had YouTube for the books back then, I would have been on there, like, ooh, read my Vader fan fiction.
No, but it's just funny because that's what I see now is we used to have good female characters like Mara Jade. But like I remember people being like, oh, all of a sudden Luke has a supermodel girlfriend who is an ace pilot.
Yeah. Oh, she's
a smuggler.
She's good now.
She was on the dark side, but she wasn't using the dark side, so there was no bad side effects.
Her being the Emperor's hand cheapens Anakin's.
Yeah.
Well,
I will say one of my favorite things ever, though, is in the book Allegiance. There's this weird scene where like they run into each other, like Mara Jade and Vader run into each other at the library. And they're just like, "Are you looking for Luke Skywalker?" Like, it's a super weird scene.
Oh, that's really
just
funny.
Makes me happy.
The one thing, if they ever did a Star Wars comedy, I would be fine with like Empire, but like corporate Empire office politics. I think there's humor there.
Yeah.
I will say this: I have been turned around on Mara Jade. My friend who I used to write with at the other side, her name's Emily O'Donnell. She is the A1 Mara Jade super fan, and she has, at great length, debunked all of my misconceptions about why I was wrong to not like Mara Jade. So I stand corrected. No one has a wrong Star Wars opinion about what they like or what they don't like, except me when I said it. Like,
See, I was neutral on Mara
better.
Jade, but my favorite Star Wars character has always been Jaina Solo. And so
See, I hated them kids too. I was like, them kids.
I got backsplash
Okay.
because people because when the New Jedi Order started, and at the very beginning Jaina like outflies all of the people at where Lando works or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're turning her into a Mary Sue just like Mara Jade. And I was like, I don't know, man. I like her.
I'm under no impression that if the Goldilocks scenario happened where George Lucas did in fact come back, they would still hate Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Like George
Especially
Lucas,
if you got all midichlorians. Oh,
they could
the whales, like the whales.
they
What's
could
that?
Silent Night, Merry Christmas this Kathleen Kennedy stepping down into George Lucas is coming back to be president again. And in 2029, his first movie comes out. They're going to be like, man, this is disrespectful to Kathleen Kennedy.
Right, this is insulting Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams, the best Star Wars pair of all times.
You just can't win with them, man. The goalposts be ever shifting. You know, it's on a moving truck at this point.
Yeah.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
The goalpost is on the back of a Dodge Charger being driven by Vin Diesel.
Sometimes it goes into space. And you see fire in space, and then it comes back down.
Yeah.
So speaking, Kitty says Star Wars needed to be feminized. It was a galactic sausage fest for decades. I mean, hey.
What? I mean, there was 3. We had Aunt Beru, we had Leia, and we had Mon Mothma. Like, what more do you
And
need?
Padme.
Eventually, we got Padme. Yeah.
Eventually we got Padme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I did think Mon Mothma was the coolest, though. I hadn't, like, the second Caroline Blakiston was like, many Boffins die. I was like, holy shit.
We got the other queen, Jamila. Queen Jamila.
Queen Jemima. Yeah, that's a different Star Wars movie
Was
that
it Jamila?
I'm producing.
What was the queen's name?
It was Jamila. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just you made me like miss the weird blaxploitation films from like the 70s of like Blackula and stuff.
Oh, Blackula was great.
What's the Asian equivalence of blaxploitation?
The Saturday morning kung fu shows.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Whoosh.
It's got to have a spicier term like blaxploitation. Like
There is a
kung
term
fu-
I've heard, but it is problematic, and I don't want to say it on the internet.
Kung manipulation. Maybe.
That sounds oddly sexual. I don't like it.
It does, yeah.
Cunnilinganil. Just kidding. All right, so we are at the end of this episode of DYAD in the Force. Just like with all of the things, when we're having really good conversations, we run long, but that's okay. That's what we're all about. Shout out to Henrique in the TikTok side for rocking with us for a long time. Shout out to Spook Kitty, Kenny Heron, Obi-Shawn Kenobi,
My screen, I can't see the names, but I say hello to all of you.
Connor,
And kindly ask you to read my stuff.
Cal, VGC or Nemo, Mason B Artistry,
Hell yeah,
Lord
basically
Goog.
artistry.
Darth
Jar Jar
Phineas
forever.
McCormick, Malik, everybody in the DYAD community. Thank you for rocking with us. yeah, I mean, this is where we take the last 5 minutes of the show to just kind of goof off and talk about.
No, this was a sheer delight. I can't believe it's been almost 3 hours. It really.
Sorry,
I didn't think my bladder was gonna make it.
No, I mean,
that's because, yeah. I mean, that's because you're an amateur. You need a Gatorade bottle at your desk at all times.
That's an
real
old
pros,
army trick. I didn't realize. Yeah.
Real lore masters have catheters.
So what are you saying?
I
Iron Man
peed 3
2?
times.
People ask how I pee in the suit. Like
That's
this.
how.
Oh man. What's the next movie?
You know what?
Mando Grogu?
Since we got 5 minutes. Let me ask you guys a quick question because I have a theory about, because there is this thing with Star Wars and everything. Like, people have this general vibe where we get so much of what we love and people hate it. Do you think the MCU sort of malaise right now, is it because it didn't go away after Endgame? Like Star Wars, Star Trek, like they Star Wars is more than Star Trek, but like they kind of end big and then go away and then they come back and then but MCU just kept on rolling and
I think it's a mixture. Well, I'll say my quick piece, and then Choco can kind of take it. But
okay,
I think it's a mixture of people forgetting what it took to get to Endgame. I think that people took away the catharsis from Endgame and thought this is what an MCU movie should be. Every MCU movie should make me feel like Endgame, but they forgot the 20 plus movies that got them there, and they forgot that we're in that same phase building of getting to the next Avengers and building the stakes to that. And we're seeing Thor: The Dark World. We're seeing all of those middle pieces that aren't peak but are needed to kind of build this universe. And yes, there is an element of fatigue in there as well, because just like with Star Wars, it's like you get in at Rebels and you're like, oh shit, there's like 20 hours of more Star Wars that I need to get through to even catch up. And then there's the books and comics. But yeah. I think people just were expecting from here on out. That's why people lauded and appreciated Deadpool and Wolverine. Not critically the best movie written, but it gave them that catharsis. But then it wasn't Endgame still. You didn't have the highest stakes. You didn't have the Avengers losing and then coming back. I just think people wanted Endgame all the time.
Yeah. So where I come down on it is I just think that there is so Star Wars has this issue because it's a generational thing, right? This isn't the Star Wars I grew up with, therefore it is incorrect, right? And that's what we see all throughout superhero media. People are like, what? You can't do that to the Flash, And you're like, oh, Jay Garrick? And they're like, no, Wally West is the Flash. And you're like, no, that's yours isn't the original. So shut up. But I digress. The MCU, since it's been continuous, there wasn't a break and then a new generation. It's bleeding from one generation to the next one. And so that's that same issue. Like, this didn't make me feel like when I saw Iron Man for the first time, because that was a cultural moment. You know what I mean? The other thing is that nobody cared about Iron Man before, right? Unless you were a sweaty comic book fan, you didn't care about Iron Man. You didn't care. They still don't care about Hawkeye. You didn't care about the Avengers. They couldn't sell those characters. That's the only reason.
I mean, do you guys remember before Iron Man debuted, it was the sort of the conventional wisdom was Marvel Studios is too late to the game with their C-list characters. Superhero movies are over because Spider-Man 3 didn't work and Last Stand didn't work.
Exactly. And then we got here. But the reason for that is because coming in with these C-list characters, the characters got to reinvent themselves, right? You didn't come into it with that same generational issue with this isn't the Iron Man I grew up with, because you didn't care about Iron Man.
That's not my Shang-Chi.
Yeah, you know, by the way, I used to hate Iron Man because he'd fight for 10 minutes and it'd be like, "Oh, my heart hurts." Like, and it was always the exact same plot.
I was a
That's
kid.
not my
Rhodey was
Wakanda.
mostly the guy.
Yeah, exactly. But it's this weird shift, and that's why all the best products that we see now are the things that are about these weird side characters. Penguin was the best thing that came out of DC in a hot minute. That and Peacemaker, because you didn't know who they were, and now you love them. No one knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy was, right? But you know, Batman, Superman, like Justice League, they're like, no, we can't. These are our babies. We have to do this. It has to be art by committee, and so we get something that's bland. Or they go too stylized without establishing a status quo. So there's this weird generational issue. There's also a weird zeitgeist issue where this knowledge is just in the zeitgeist. No one remembers where they found it.
Yeah.
And so there's assumptions going into things. There's a couple of those things.
I mean, there's people who are probably 25, maybe close to 30, that can't imagine a world without a lot of sci-fi superhero movies and stuff. And like you said, way long ago, it used to be like one movie a year if you were lucky. You'd get a superhero movie where the superhero does not do any of the things you recognize from the comic books, but they call him his name, you know?
It was just
they never wear the same. They only wore leather for some reason. They were all leather daddies.
It was the popularization of comic culture is what Fox did, and what Sony did with Spider-Man and X-Men. I'm in an extremely lucky place to have come to. I didn't care about anybody except for Hawkeye. Watching the build up to Avengers, I really didn't. My jam was the X-Men, and so that's why I consider myself lucky, because now I'm in the advent of the introduction to the X-Men, and that's going to be my huge catharsis moment, because I had X-Men with Fox. Is all right, but what I can thank Fox and Sony for doing is the popularization, and I thank Disney for popularizing Star Wars in a way that it is pop culture. Back then, being a lore master of Star Wars, you were a geek, you were a nerd.
Oh yeah.
Back then, you were a devil worshiper if you played D&D and you rolled dice. Nowadays, it's cool to go see the Marvel movie, to go see the DC movie, to go see a Star Wars movie.
They're going to start putting Critical Role in theaters.
I mean, they do it live on stage, and people pay tickets to sit there and watch it. So this huge kind of shift in the zeitgeist, where it is so popular, you are going to get the people, the reverse hipsters. They're like, there's too much of it. I don't care for it anymore.
And then also one final thing is, we also have to remember that we are living in the middle of the Clone Wars, right? The Clone Wars existed. It was controlled by Palpatine on both sides. I don't know,
Choco. I think it's the dark times. I don't know if we might be fully into dark times. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, well, but basically, yeah, I'm just saying that the Clone Wars was a fake war that existed so that people would cheer while their civil liberties were being taken away, and that's being done to us right now with a fake culture war. Literally doesn't exist.
Because our war's political. We're just trying to have fun.
But that is also affecting the popularity of certain things in our media today.
I'll close out by saying, like, so when I throughout my career, anytime I got the chance to write about entertainment, I'd take it because it was fun for me. But when I finally was like, I am done with news, I cannot do this anymore. The way that you get work is you have to like show stuff that you've written recently. So it was kind of hard for me to get like an entertainment gig because all I'd been writing about was politics. So the first like entertainment piece that I sold on my shift to becoming a critic was for this website called Crooked Marquee, and it was just called The Star Wars Prequels Warned Us About This. And it's basically all about how Trump is stupid Palpatine. It is It is an article that I'm waiting for it to not be relevant anymore.
I mean, I said this a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Even though it's not ideologically 1-to-1, I see Bail and Mon Mothma as like the front line of the resistance in Bernie and AOC, and it's just a mirror. Even though like ideologically they're diametrically opposed.
I don't know about. I don't know. It's who's Luthen. That's who. This is who we gotta watch.
We don't.
We won't
know. We won't know. If he's Luthen, we won't know. Like who's that hairdo?
But where can we find you and all of your stuff and the title of the book and where we can order it?
Awesome. On social media, I am at Joshua M. Patton on most apps. You can find me on CBR, where I write about all these superhero things, Star Wars, Star Trek. I'll be reviewing Strange New Worlds in July. And my Star Wars criticism book, Divided to Lead the Third Wave of Star Wars and Star Trek. It's available on Amazon.com in paperback, along with the rest of my books. If you prefer ebook, there's one called Swords, Spaceships, and Superheroes. That is the Star Wars stuff, plus the Marvel stuff, plus the DC stuff, plus the prestige. Like if I published that book as a paperback, it would be longer than all but one of the Game of Thrones books. So that's why we're doing it in sections for the paperbacks.
That's fair.
But thank you so much for having me, guys. I found your channel. I love that there's positive voices in Star Wars, and I'm so happy to be here and chatting with you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was a joy. We appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it, and thank you for coming on such short notice. Sometimes we get cancellations, but I always encourage people to reach out if you guys want to be on the show, if you guys want to talk Star Wars, because this isn't a letter jacket club by any means. This is, if you guys want to talk Star Wars, that's the only thing that I will look at. If you do have a nice camera, a mic, and you're not kind of like in your kitchen talking into the phone, that's still welcome, but it's just going to present some technical issues with audio. But if you guys want to come on, reach out to us and let us know. Oftentimes we just reach out to people that we see on social media and ask them if they want to come on. So thank you to Joshua for reaching out and for being with us tonight. And thank you to everybody on the TikTok side and the YouTube side. I'm just naming things now. I don't care anymore. For rocking with us.
Shout out to my people on GeoCities.
Yeah, shout out to Lycos and the Angel Fire.
Shout out to my boy Ask Jeeves.
Shout out to the original, the OG triple OG Alta Vista. And shout out to the one that got me through graphic design school, Net Zero. Next week we'll be joined by Denzel Green. It was going to be this week, but he had scheduling conflicts. But Denzel Green, the mug sipper, I can't think of a rhyme that's appropriate. But he'll join us next week. We'll see what happens with Star Wars news until then. But thank you guys. Shout out to Xenu. I don't know what that means, Spooky Kitty. Shout out to Padme. And shout out to all of the Latinas that I'm currently obsessed with, man. That's it. On to the next one.
For Light and for Life.
We're all in love with Latinas, let's be honest.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
I can't deny it.